Hello, and welcome to another exciting addition to our deconditioning series. So, this week we have our lovely Eden Carpenter joining us, and you might have recognized her from the 6-2 episodes. So, she's going to share with us the amazing methodology of method of magic. So, you might be like, what does that even mean? So, you are going to get to find out all of that plus a very exciting in-depth chart reading from our master chart reader, Danny. But of course, before we can do all of that exciting stuff for you, you guessed it, we are going to fill you in on what is happening in the skies with our expert meteorologists, Moni and Danny. So without further ado, tag team out.
We have arrived.
We're doing it. How are you doing,
Yep.
Danny?
I'm doing well, Moni. How's you?
I'm good. I'm excited because we're diving into the 1 and the 2. So these are like big players, and that also then means, right, we're switching into another quarter.
Yep, we sure are. It's at hand practically. And I forget when our transits changed, but it's not too long from now, so I can't wait to
Yes.
do that episode.
So it's the 5th to the 10th. So today it's the 6th. So we just got into gate 1.
Perfect.
Right. So here we can see it on our mandalas. We continue following ourselves around the wheel. So the sun is in gate 1. It's the creative, and it's an identity center gate pointing upward. And then the earth is in gate 2, which is the receptive, which is that identity center gate pointing downward.
These two gates make, of course, the Sphinx, the mutative. Well, yeah, that's right. We're into the mutative quarter, like you were saying, and they really provide the individual unique direction of the being. And they're so polar opposite, yet they're so the same. I can't wait to keep talking about it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have gate 1, which is the creative. It's the gate of self-expression, and it's creation as a primal force. This is the energy potential to manifest inspiration without limitation. It's an identity gate, and it's part of individual circuitry. So individual, think empowerment, and it's part of the knowing subcircuitry, right? And it links up with gate 8, making the 1-8 channel, which is the channel of inspiration. And gate 1 is the drive and deep need to focus on expressing oneself in unique and creative ways. You do not care about being the best. You simply wish to live out your true creative nature, your authentic individuality, exemplifying new ways of expressing your authentic self. And you empower others to consider new perspectives or new ways of being in the world.
Or new things to follow. Yeah, it says the receptive up top, but I know you meant the creative.
I did meet the creative. I tried to skip past it.
It's so simple. So the next slide might say the
And
creative.
it is, yeah, it is.
That's
And my
so
third
funny.
line, no matter how meticulous
It's
I am with these
perfect.
slides, there's always one thing with
It's
my third line,
perfect.
like a
Yes,
Persian
we
rug.
love it. So we're switching his name. But anyways, yeah, no, gate 1 is this beautiful sense that all of humanity knows that at times, because all of the stuff that is gate 1 and gate 2 comes in a pulse. And we've described this pulse before, this creative pulse. That is the point of the creative pulse. Is it is like magic. Our guest will be able to talk plenty about this. It means there's nothing and now there's something. Where'd it come from? If you're religious or spiritual, it came from God, you know what I mean? Or it came from our antennae but
The creator from the bigger than us, whatever you want to call it.
And it also co-created or just straight up created within us. It's the expression of self-creativity that knows no limitation and can, on its face, it knows no limitation. And it also cannot be invoked per se. You can put yourself in places to be creative, but you can't invoke the actual moment of creativity. It's inspiration without limitation, independent of will. Is really, yeah, independent of will. That's what I love about it. It's like, I will this to happen. No mind. You take a back seat, have a seat, get yourself a slushie, take a nap. It'll happen when it happens.
Fascinating. All right, on to gate 2. So this is the receptive, and it's the gate of the direction of self. It's receptivity as the primal base through which any response is determined. And it's the root of action, right? So it's also part of the identity center, right? And it's individual empowerment is our theme for individual circuitry, and also part of the knowing subcircuitry, just like it's gate 1 pair. And then it links up with gate 14, which is power skills. And then the 14-2 is the channel of the beat. And this is higher knowing of gate 2, rooted in direction of the self toward love and beauty via the magnetic monopole, the driver. And this focused on our movement in time through space, and it's built into your design as an innate sense of inner direction, not based on geographic location. By simply aligning to your own direction, you automatically empower or confirm in others their own sense of direction.
It's just so gorgeous because the gate 1 is the yangest of all gates, all solid lines. Gate 2 has to be its mirror opposite to be in opposition on the wheel. So it's no yang lines, all yin, straight up the center. And its receptivity, the receptive, is the perfect name for it because it waits to be receptive. It almost acts like a generator. And why wouldn't it? It's in one of the tantric channels that goes 14 to 2. So I love this reception. What it's doing literally at the time is it's helping us guide ourselves towards exactly what the language here says, towards beauty, towards aesthetic pleasingness, towards the thing that creates community and makes people want to stay in it. So it's again without limitation and independent of will. So humanity is being dragged along by these two gates that point the individual direction, and that's the most important part, is the individual direction as it relates to we'll die without it, because that will kill our self-expression. And as it points that and moves that, these two gates guarantee we're open and receptive towards the yang force that wants to drive like the light into its creativity in a pulse, independent of your mind, independent of mind. Yep.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. So now we have the incarnation. So people born this week, first we start with the right angle cross of the Sphinx. Right. And this is what's starting ourselves in this new quarter. And this is creative individuals trying to build a legacy to express and immortalize their own direction, providing and maintaining a mutative direction through example. Then we'll move on into the juxtaposition cross of self-expression, which is socially adept people fixed on providing creative and revolutionary answers for questions which have not yet been asked. And then finally, we'll move into the left angle cross of defiance. And this is individuals who attract society, but are here to protect difference. The fierceness to demand non-interference in any form in order to preserve uniqueness.
Beautiful. So we go from let's move a direction from the right angle to, hey guys, I'm expressing the thing and I'm fixed in this way, to hell with y'all, and whoever not hell with y'all, come on along, thank you, which is usually less than 5% of the crowd, and it's just defiant. It's defiant but lawful. There's nothing bad or even rude about this per se until the other tries to make it stop being that way. Then there's confrontation. That defiance will definitely, lead to a form of confrontation over time. Unless it's in a 6-2, then that person will just go away potentially, or they'll say something.
They just disappear.
Yep.
All right. So finally, we have the hexagram. So November 5th through the 10th. First, the sun is in gate 1, which is the creative, and that's heaven over heaven. So this is really fun and interesting because you see it's 6 solid, unbroken lines. And so that's all referring to like the masculine energy. So gate 1 in the I Ching with the hexagram is that pure masculine creative force. And so this one states, the heavens move ceaselessly. A noble one in his own strength does not pause. Creative force is the absolute power of heaven that moves the stars in their courses and makes the seasons turn. A noble one finds this creative force is within him as close as his own breath. It does not need to pause and rest, and nor does he.
Oh God, that's gorgeous. It's speaking towards this defiance that shows up when people are attempting to change your way. And heaven over heaven just says that the yang force, which is the driving light of the sun drives its light into the earth, but it's Mother Earth that raises up the life, obviously. And so it just says the light points towards heaven. I think that's gorgeous. The noble one sees that the light points towards heaven. It's not quite in my hands. The creative one will appear. It's always appearing. And don't try to say it's not.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. And then next up, we have the earth in gate 2, which is the receptive. And in the I Ching, it just says earth. And the imagery for this one is power of the land, earth. A noble one with generous character carries all the beings. Through the power of the land, earth is heaven's partner in bringing the world into being. The sun needs a place to shine, rain a place to fall, and seeds need soil to grow in. Flashes of inspiration need space and time to expand and take shape. Great ideas need work to be realized. The power of the land is to provide everything needed for all things to find their shape. A noble one embodies this power in the deep generosity of her character. She certainly need never worry about the limits of her strength.
Nor the limits of her power connected to gate 14. Ultimately, the power of earth, the power of gate 2. And this all sounds very nice because it says that the yang force of the sun drives towards heaven, but it's counterbalanced. It's almost like there is no heaven without earth, in a
Yeah, you
way.
can't. You can't have light without the darkness. You can't have
Without,
darkness without the
right,
light. You can't have
but
heaven without a contrast of earth. You can't have an earth without the contrast of heaven.
absolutely, except that in this case, the earth isn't dark. The earth almost shares the light with gate 1 in a way. It's
It's like
just
the
that,
yin yang.
yeah, totally. And it is, even all the language was very open and receptive and mother and feminine like, yin like. But the thing is, listen, it's easy to have a romance with gate 1, right?
Yeah.
It's got no sacral juice. It can't really, but it is its own thing. And everyone wants a love affair with that one. This one here is just as spry and thorny at times because gate 2's in a hurry.
Mm.
And if that's a response from the sacral, it's sustainingly in a hurry. If that's
Mm.
not a response from the sacral, it's still in a hurry. It's maybe even more in a hurry in a way before the energy runs out. It wants to receive the right workload being done to move us in a direction that takes humanity towards the beauty of not just aesthetics. Gate 2 says, I am the magnetic monopole. I latch onto a direction. If that direction is towards beauty, harmony, literally harmony with others, and what is ultimately communion to allow the spirit to flow, gate 1, the spirit through gate 1 in this case, then we're in the right direction. And I've hooked you onto a geometry, and if you're not paying attention to that, you go in the wrong direction. So listen, she will beat you down if you go in the wrong direction, is my point. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah.
And yes, Grandma Pluto, she's like, I'm not here to be nice. I'm here to tell it to you like it is, but I love
Uh-huh.
you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So this is a lot of that. So the earth is the perfect analogy for it because the earth has water, raging seas, it has fire, it has placid lakes, it has beauty, it has it all. It has life. And that life is impatient in humans. It would like to get to the end game of communion, beauty, and the spirit of the self being recognized. This is all humanity wants to thrive. Literally, we'll be fine if we get those things. So,
Well, that's super
boom.
beautiful. All right.
What
So
can they expect?
yeah, tying it all together, right? So I always like to start with the earth positioning and getting the earth positioning kind of in order for ourselves, right? Because that's what's going to receive the sun and that's what's going to ground us. So what I would
Mhm.
think for like gate 2 in as the earth, it's like make yourself ready to receive, if that makes sense. Like take care of yourself, just like if you were planting like seeds to like grow something and then eventually come to harvest. It's like you're not just going to take like rocks and pebbles and stuff when that's not correct for the seed, right? You want good soil. You want it to be, is it the succulent soil or is it a moist soil? What are you going to put in there? Is it sandy? Like you
Right.
have to prepare the soil. You add the amendments or the fertilizer, right? You want to put all that nourishment into the soil before you're even planting that seed, which would then be the sun, right? And that's like gate 1 in that creative. So put ourselves in that place of receptivity, and we have to take care of ourselves in order to receive anything, right? Like if you're just like a chaotic mess, you can't even receive a gift that someone's giving you. So take care of yourself, prepare that soil of yourself to be nourished and fertilized and receptive, so then we can shine that creative force energy and going in that like gate 1 yang sunshiny direction into that creative expression of yourself from that core of your heart, of your identity, and like where you're going.
Gotcha. So I'm so thrilled, and I know I mentioned this before, that we are a man and a woman doing this because
Yeah.
I would have bypassed all that beauty you just said in a sense to say, listen, y'all are in a hurry to do something. 1, 2, 3, go. This is again, this is a time this week, all this week is you'll creative urges will show up. There will be a little bit of impatience in your body. You'll sense it, you'll know it. Now you can sort of see what that is. Surrender to it, relent into it, allow it. Don't put yourself in any trouble. Some creative things will get you in trouble, no question. Um, you know, but it's your own creativity. So this is a moment to selfishly be yourself. Truly, gate one is like this. It's called inspiration. It's of the self. And so all the individual gates are of the self. So there is a pressure sort of pushing you a little bit. It wants to sustain, allow it. And when creative things come through, don't you dare throw it off to, oh, this is stupid. Oh, that's silly. Oh, I'm going to look silly. Put all that stuff aside and just be your 4-year-old self and be like, do you think you like it? Does it sound good to you?
Is it
Then
fun? Does it feel good?
yes, then again, one, two, three, go. Do the creative thing this week that you weren't sure about. Especially if it's start a book or, or something like that. You start
An
writing a book.
individual expression of your creativity coming from that core, from the heart of your being that is your identity center.
Right, that you can't explain until it shows up. So
Mhm.
as it shows up, suddenly you know more about yourself. If you quell this with any kind of mental activity, you will know less about yourself. If you don't quell it, you will come to know so much more about yourself. And then you'll understand why strategy, type, and authority matter so much because you'll be following it. You'll see it at work. So I like it.
Absolutely. Sounds good. I love it. Thank you, Danny.
Hmm.
Thank you so much, Moni and Danny, for illuminating what's coming up for us this week. So, without further ado, we are going to be bringing on the lovely Eden Carpenter to just illuminate in all the ways our nervous system can be better taken care of with fusing human design. Yes, you heard that right. That is an actual thing. So, here she comes, the lovely Eden. Hello.
Yay. How are you?
I am jazzed.
Perfect. I'm
I am
delightful.
You're delightful, amazing. So, I have some pressing yet fun questions to ask you about. Okay, let's start with what is the method of magic? Because people might be like, what is she like, using a Harry Potter wand and doing some stuff? Like what is it?
Basically, yeah. It feels like magic. It really
Hmm.
does. I have a background in nursing, and then I'm kind of obsessed with the nervous system, polyvagal theory, rapid resolution therapy. Anything trauma focused is really fascinating to me, neurodivergency, all of that. So I found human design while I was in nursing school. And so all of my nursing education actually has this like co-study perspective of I was learning everything in nursing school while also studying human design. So I made all of these connections unconsciously as a 6-2 profile because second lines just kind of do that. And I didn't realize how much I was connecting the dots between the human design body graph and the nervous system already. And so I'm teaching it. We're teaching polyvagal theory right now. We're teaching nervous system regulation and essentially how to use the human design chart as a map of your client's nervous system so that you can see where there's a little bit of an energetic snag and move that energy. You can tell where they're designed to be really fixed and where they need routines and patterns to support certain energetic behaviors, and where they're designed to be flexible, where they might think they have a problem, but really there's no solution here. And so we don't have to be finding a solution because you're designed to be flexible. So the method of magic is this weird hybrid magical energetic thing that is kind of backed and grounded in science, but also very much tapping into intuitive and spiritual practices. And it's really fun and it's really playful. And that's what I do.
Amazing. So I was going to say, you have your nursing um, background, but would you say there was a pivotal moment in your journey where you realized I need to do something different? Like, how can I? Because, the whole point of the deconditioning series is to introduce people to all the modalities available, but you already know of those modalities because you've been playing in the spiritual space for some time. What made you go, no, 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 I need to make a whole new thing? Like, was there a moment that made you be like, oh? like I'm just having a day, like this tool isn't doing it for me. Like what can I create that hasn't been created before, kind of thing.
Yeah, specifically, I found human design when I was already reading all of the money mindset books and the manifestation books and The Secret. And I was following Amanda Francis and Katrina Ruth. And just, I was really in that money manifestation, personal development world. And so I was really interested in how human design could be applied to the process of manifestation because I was following the steps, I was doing the journaling, and like everyone had these different practices. And some people said you have to feel the feelings, and other people say it's all about your thoughts, and other people say it's all about identity, or it's all about visualization, or if you're meditating or enough, or it's your vibration. And so I was trying to figure that out. And so I used human design as pretty much a map of what if this is a personalized manifestation process. And so let's say if I'm manifesting, at the time I was manifesting, like I had this vision of like a side hustle where I doubled our income. And it was just a fun thing. Originally, I thought it would be like fitness related or like planners, organization, mindset for college students or something along those lines. But then human design came in and it was just this map. And so when I was playing with my human design for the first time, I said, how can I apply this not to just life in general, but like I need an anchor. And so I looked at my relationship to money because I had like 50 books on Audible. I was listening to all of the podcasts. I was journaling like crazy. I was doing the money meditation and the gratitude journaling. I'm like, okay, and I'm posting on Instagram, but like no one's paying me. So like where's the disconnect? And so I looked at those non-self themes of the 9 centers, and I looked at the non-self themes of like how can those themes apply specifically to money. And so I really called myself out of, okay, I keep going on Instagram and thinking, like I was stalking people. I'm like, what do they do? What are they knowing? What is it that is like what's interesting about them? What are they doing that I don't have? I was searching for inspiration, like what's the
Mm.
secret? What do they all know? What is that like bachelor's in business that they all have? Like what's the class that I missed? And so it was really this like, what information am I missing around money? And I realized that that was the undefined head center. And so I said, if I'm not designed to search for answers around money, or I'm not designed to search for answers in general, how can I just let the inspiration come to me? And so I practiced anytime I was in my journal saying, okay, this is my monthly goal for the money that I want to make or whatever. I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to write down what am I going to do? What do I have to do to get it done? And so I would just allow myself to wait to respond. So I said, here's me informing the universe. Here's me putting this out there. This is what I want. This is the vision I have. I don't know how I'm supposed to get there, but here it is. Give me something to respond to. And then I would wait to respond. The next thing would come in, I would respond. And so it was really playing with the undefined centers and like the strategy and authority really played, like that was a really powerful moment. It was really just a lot of these micro moments where over time I looked back and like that was an avalanche. Like I had no idea that I was making such a big snowball at the time. But yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely like, so how would you say was like the immediate like benefits or changes or shifts you notice when you started using the method of magic like on yourself and like what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. First, I noticed it in my studies. I was homeschooled until I was 17. And so I had like 1 year of high school before going to college. And I was used to taking tests online at home at whatever time of day I wanted from the comfort of my bed with absolutely no distractions. And taking a break if I wanted to, or getting up and changing locations. I wasn't used to standardized testing. And so I was learning the material, but I was not testing well. And my like recall wasn't there. And I was like panicking during tests, thought it was test anxiety. And so I used human design to like help me learn better. And so like I started writing affirmations like related to the undefined head center. The affirmation that I started writing on almost every single one of my tests. Like I would erase it on most of them. But it was like just for me, like if the professor saw it, like whatever. But I would write, I have been exposed to everything I need to know in order to do well on this test. Because with that undefined head center, like if it's, yeah, I just need to be exposed to it, I don't have to search for answers. So it showed up in my schooling. I started testing better. I started getting really good grades. I started running study groups and teaching in the anatomy lab. And I got into like every single nursing school I applied to. It helped in my relationship. I was like barely married at the time.
I
Was
mean, it's
barely
either you're
married.
married or you're not. Do you mean it was after you're a newlywed? Is that what
Yes,
you
we
meant?
were newlywed. We
Okay,
were,
newlywed.
yeah, just like in the beginning stages of our marriage.
Like
We've been
really
together for
fresh.
10 years now. Yeah. And so I look back, we were like baby married. That's a better term than barely married. But yeah, we were
Barely
baby
married. I was
married.
like, are you guys engaged? Is that what you meant?
Definitely the wrong word for that like that sentence.
It's
But
all
yeah,
good.
we
It
were,
gave us a
yeah.
laugh. It's all, all good.
It did, yeah. But we were new to being on our own, and we had moved from being around family to he was in the military. We were establishing careers. So human design really helped me figure out our relationship and how to communicate with him as someone with a defined head and ajna, but an undefined throat center. And so he's a sacral authority, I'm an emotional authority. We process things very differently. And so that helped me understand our differences, but also how to adapt and how to communicate. So it showed up those places. And then I started getting the urges of like, just to learn it better, I wanted to look at other people's charts. And so that was one of the first things where I put out on my little Instagram page, like, hey, DM me your birthday and your email address. And I promise I won't steal your identity. I'll do a human design chart reading for free. It's gonna be great. I'm a stranger on the internet. This isn't sketchy. And 160 people fell for it and got these free chart readings.
I was gonna say that's an avalanche of chart readings. How long were these chart readings? Like an
Like
hour,
20
30
to 30
minutes?
minutes.
Okay.
But I was pre-recording them, so that
Oh,
was really my
perfect.
like I needed a puzzle to figure out with my 1762. It's like I need something to take apart and put together. So
Right.
I was like researching, putting together the information. It was like I would try and test myself of can I make slides with just what I remember first, and can I fill out the slides of what is their type, what's their strategy, what's their authority, what are these centers, and then if I didn't remember them, I would go to the book and I would like rearrange it however I
Hmm.
needed to. But that's
Hmm.
really how I started to like practice and study, was interpreting the information for other people.
Hmm.
And people started responding of like, that's incredible. Like, please, can I pay you to continue to read my chart, to offer me coaching? Can we work together? Like, this makes sense, please. Yes.
Hmm.
And so it was very much the universe gave me something else to respond to. And so I responded to that. I started offering like different paid readings. I offered just like different coaching things for a while. And then people started asking for like a course on, I want to learn this, but
Hmm.
in your language and the way that you describe it. It was
Hmm.
very early on, even in like my first year of teaching this and sharing this information. People were like, I want to learn it from you. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I was just responding to one thing after another.
Nice. That is like the perfect like responding snowball that I've ever witnessed in a story. It's absolutely fabulous. So what I was going to ask you next is you talked about like your journey. Now I want to hear I guess the most memorable like client or someone who is not you that you introduced method of magic to and like the I guess the before and after that you noticed. You don't have to like give away names or anything. Just keep it fake.
I'm pretty sure she would be fine with me saying her name. Like, oh, yeah,
Ooh.
yeah, she's fine with it. Holly Marie. Holly Marie runs the
No.
Manifestor community. We were in a mastermind together. She was not interested in human design. This was pre-human design.
This is
She was
Wild Town.
there
Oh my gosh. Okay.
during the like we did a live mastermind event and Lauren of Love was running it. This
Right.
was early 2019
Hmm.
and I got to teach. Lauren was like, do you want to teach human design to the group? And I was like, yes, I want to teach it live, like absolutely. So I got to teach it live for the first time and everyone was like, you need to do a certification. Like it was, we had such an in-depth conversation that they said, let's skip our next segment and just keep going here and let's start the next day with like continuing this conversation. Yeah, she was a part of that mastermind, and then she was in the first round of SSCC, my certification. I have her book, Informed, on my
Right?
shelf now. She
Every
is a published
manifester should have
author.
that book. So,
Yeah, and she specializes specifically in manifestors. She has created the manifestor community, and as a 4/6 splenic manifestor, that's just so aligned for her. And I like just cautiously and slowly threw human design tidbits at her, and because she'd heard about it before but wasn't super interested in it until I just like inched my way in, and then she's like, okay, I need to learn this. And years later she has an entire company really focused on not just human design but a specific niche inside of human design.
that's
And she's like
absolutely,
a
yeah, you
renowned
took a
expert on the
non-believer and
topic.
like made them like the representative for a type. Like
Yeah,
that's
so I
wild. Because I'm
introduced
like,
her
Holly
to human
Marie's
design.
where everyone gets sent when you're a manifestor. It's like, no, go check out her stuff. Go check out her stuff. So like that lavender color has been just like burned into my psyche. It's like, no, that equals being a manifestor, which is not
Yeah,
true at all.
but it does. She's branded it.
I know. This is like, this is what peace feels like. This lavender
Yeah,
color. For everyone who's like,
exactly.
what is she rambling about? Maybe one day we'll get Holly on the show. I've tried before and she was just not correct timing. But anyhow,
Hmm.
wow, that is Wild Town. Is there anything else you want to share with the method of magic before you demonstrate how it works for us?
Mm, I don't know. It's just a combination of a bunch of different things. It's very much conversational hypnosis. It's like,
Mhm.
feels like mental gymnastics to me. I'm like, let's just see if we can
I was gonna
piece
say, speaking
together
of
information.
gymnastics, Eden also did that,
Yes,
like
I was a
actual
competitive
physical
gymnast for
gymnastics.
9 years.
Yeah, so you just like took everything and you just made like a gumbo out of it.
How
Like,
manifesting generate.
right? Just a very delicious gumbo called Method of Magic. Okay, so for this demo, do you need a live like carbon human here, or are you able to just like take up the whole screen?
I think having a person here would be nice. Yeah, just give me
Oh,
like some
okay.
energy to respond to. Yeah, and like
Okay. So
I can't
I
always
am
just
going
talk to
to
myself, but
what was I going to do? I'm going to do one thing. So in that one time thing, I'm going to let you prep the audience and then I'll be right back. It'll only be a minute, okay?
perfect. Okay, I can manage myself alone for a few minutes, I promise. So, the method of magic combines pretty much a conversational hypnosis technique with the information that we get in your human design chart. Your human design chart is a map of potential. It is not a rule book. It is not a thing that you have to follow. It's not dogmatic in any way. It really is about potential. And so, when somebody is experiencing an emotion, a fun, unique perspective that I have on emotions is that we cause our own emotions. And a good example of this is a rapid resolution therapy example. If you're familiar with RRT, let's say that you are on a safari and you see a lion come out of nowhere and it starts chasing this herd of zebras, and the zebras run really fast and there's a whole little chasey situation, and then somebody on the safari says, wow, that lion really put that fear of God into that zebra. And it's easy to assume that the lion puts the fear into the zebra, that the lion caused the emotion. But actually, the lion doesn't want the zebra to be fearful. Ideally, for the lion in their perfect world, the zebra would be pretty listless and kind of relaxed and not really alert. And they would just kind of lay there and roll over and be an easy dinner. The zebra used the zebra's body, saw and sensed different bits of information in its external reality, and it interpreted that data as threats, and it created an emotional response in the form of fear and adrenaline, and it gave that zebra the energy in an instant to get away safely. So the zebra caused the emotion. Things outside of us don't have the power to give us feelings, they are an inside job. And so when we are experiencing any sort of heightened emotion or any sort of dysregulation, we are solely responsible and we get to play with how we want to move that energy. all energy is in motion. It can't be created, it can't be destroyed. And emotions are a big surge of energy in your body. It's just energy that needs to be moved, and we can move it. Negative emotions, positive emotions aren't really a thing in my world. They're all just emotions, and they can range in intensity. And so when the body is activated, I think my main goal today is to talk about shame and how we can move and alchemize shame. And so shame is an emotion where it could feel like we are feeling shame, or somebody else is shaming us, or we are ashamed of ourselves, and it's coming from an external situation. It can feel like that sometimes, but really shame is an emotion, and emotions are energy. Emotions give you the energy to take action and to get things done. And so if you have energy, you get to do things. And so shame is something that your body gives you because it's a useful emotion. It's really intense. It's a really high energy emotion. And I kind of see it like a sugary candy bar. So Halloween is coming, or Halloween was a little while ago, according to when this is going live. And so there's probably a lot of candy around the house. If anyone went trick or treating or you were offering candy out, you might still have a bunch of candy in your house. So there may have been a moment in the last week where you were hungry and there was a bowl of candy right there, and you just grabbed a little Snickers bar, or you grabbed something quick to just stave off that hunger and to just give yourself something. And so when we're hungry, hunger is going to be, of course, that's an emotion, but sugar is something that's going to spike your blood sugar, and then it's going to drop. So it's going to give you a whole bunch of energy really quickly, but then that energy also dies out very quickly. That battery drains very quickly as well. Something like a complex carb with some protein and some fiber is going to be something that's going to give you a mild level of energy that's sustainable. So things like joy, satisfaction, peace, success, surprise, things like that are sustainable emotions. Things like anger, frustration, bitterness, disappointment, or shame are emotions that spike your energy. They give you a surge of energy. These are emergency level emotions. I think it's really, really cool that your body can like think of something embarrassing that you did 2 years ago, and in an instant, you have a surge of energy. So your body is giving you emotions for a reason. Your body is giving you these emotions for energy. And so shame is the one that I really wanted to focus on today because it's one of the ones that I've just been playing with and alchemizing in lots of different ways. And I'm kind of obsessed with shame right now. So we're gonna we're gonna talk about shame. When shame is hello, how you
I
doing?
was like, you don't have to fill the space anymore. If you don't need to, I can leave. Because I'm like, my nose was like dripping, and I'm like, I don't want to do this while like people can see snot visibly coming down my nostrils. But
I get it.
I cleaned my nose,
Okay.
so I'm ready to
Yeah.
be your guinea pig.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, shame is a high level emotion, and our body gives it to us when we need energy. And so it's really just energy. And so it's just a mental story. It's so fun. So shame says, I should have already done something.
Hmm.
Oh, I should have gotten that thing done yesterday. I should have responded to them. It's either should or shouldn't have.
I was gonna say it almost sounds a little bit like guilt.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Hmm.
Guilt is more related to like the action. Shame is like, I am bad for doing that. That's
Oh,
how
it's like
they
almost like a
differentiate the two.
self-labeling kind of.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I feel guilty for my actions. I feel ashamed of who I am. I can't believe
Oh.
I'm the kind of person who would do something like that. So yeah, guilt and shame are very similar. It's like directing it at the behavior or just at your identity.
I was like, yeah, like self-inflicted versus like action.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so it's almost like with guilt, there's still a separation of like your identity is still a little bit higher. Like I don't see myself as being somebody who would do that. I feel guilty for like stepping down, for changing my morals, for doing something out of character. And guilt is essentially, if we're thinking about like polyvagal theory, guilt is where you're in a shame. Shame is a functional freeze. So guilt is like oh God, I reacted too quickly. I was angry. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. It's still like a heightened emotion. But when
Got
that
it.
emotion is too high, like chronic stress, functional freeze, you'll feel like, okay, I've done so many things that I'm guilty of that like I'm just, it's me. I'm the problem. It's not the thing. And so the identity kind of like dwindles with it. So yeah, guilt and shame are very similar, and it's just a little bit different like activation in the nervous system, because guilt, it still has a little bit of like, I want to run away from it, I want
Yeah.
to like fix it. It still has a little bit of like active energy, so we're still in a sympathetic nervous system response, versus shame will actually be that like dorsal vagal response, which is like shut down, because at that point
Oh.
like the physiology is different too. Of guilt, it's like,
Mm,
oh no, I shouldn't have done that, but it's almost this like leaning forward of like, I'm sorry I did that, that's not
mm,
me. Versus shame, it's like you're literally just collapsing and hiding into your
yeah.
body. You're like, I don't want to be me anymore.
Ooh,
It's like, yeah,
yeah.
so they're similar
Mhm.
emotionally, and it's really just like the level of intensity and where the mind is like directing it,
Ah,
and like
mhm.
what story you're making of it. But they're all really intense energy that is looking at identity, and it's looking at actions, but they're both looking at something in the past. And so
Interesting.
yeah,
Yes, it's true. You're not shame. I mean, yeah, I'm like trying to think, would you ever do it in a future sense? No, but it's related to a
yeah,
thing that you didn't do in the past or wasn't someone you wish you were in the past. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, you're not like,
Mhm.
I'm ashamed that I'm not going to post on Instagram tomorrow.
Yeah, but it doesn't
You
work.
don't know.
Yeah, I'm like, it doesn't work in a future sense, does it?
No, it's related to the past. And
Mhm.
so when we are ashamed of things, it can be detrimental, but it can also put us in a space of stuckness, because all of our attention is looking at something and our mind is giving us this emotion. So the mind says, this thing that happened was important. And so now we're directing mental energy. And then the body says, okay, importance equals life or death. Here is your emotional emergency kit. Here's shame. So you need energy right now. Here is shame. And so what's happening is the body is physiologically responding to a threat that doesn't exist,
True.
because the
Mhm.
thing that you're ashamed of happened yesterday or the day before or a week ago or a year ago or whatever. And so the body is trying to respond. It's saying, here's energy to take action on that thing that already happened. And so you get
Mhm.
in this like back and forth space, because the emotions are being created in response to something that doesn't exist. And so I've been playing with the mindset switch of, is the threat in the room with us right now? Like just asking myself that, like, is the threat in the room with us right now? Because a regulated nervous system will respond to appropriate threats. If you are a regulated person, all of a sudden you get a creepy feeling while you were in a crowd, you leave. That's a good thing to do. That's
Mhm.
amazing. A dysregulated nervous system will respond to things that aren't actually real. And so all signs of stuckness, it's either focusing your attention on like, I shouldn't have done that thing. If I hadn't have done that thing, then right now would be different. And in that moment, what's happening is the body is creating energy to take action, but the mind doesn't know where to focus it, because the mind is trying to
Mm,
solve a problem that already happened. So it's just
mm,
rewriting different, like, what if I did something different yesterday? And so in that moment, what we can do is we can take a step back and we can come back to the present moment and realize what's actually happening. What's
mhm.
actually happening is right here, right now, your body gave you the energy to get a task done, and your
Right.
mind is interested on a certain situation. And
Mhm.
so you can't change it already. It already happened. And so right now is the next best option. So, can you do something about it right now? If you have the capacity, then that shame and that guilt or that emotion that you're feeling, however intense it is, it's energy, and you can use it as energy. There's times where I've been hungry and I've just like had a Snickers bar or had a candy bar really quickly or something like that. Yeah, I'm not going to do it every single day. I'm not going to run on Hershey's. It might be fun, but like,
I was like, that should be a shirt Eden wears sometimes as a joke. I run on Hershey's bars.
I run on Hershey's. Yeah.
You heard it here first.
The original quote.
Right? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Keep going. I'm a sugar
You
fiend.
can run
So,
on, oh, me too. I love my sugar. We can run on those, but they will lead to crashes. And
right, of
so what
course.
we want to do is cool. In the moment, if you're experiencing shame, awesome. You can recognize and you can step back and we can alchemize it. And so that's what we just did, was saying, oh, wow, okay, I'm feeling shame.
I was
Shame
gonna say
is
that's something
energy
people
in
get
motion.
shameful about all the time about like their eating habits, right? Like there's
Mm,
shame where I'm like, man, I am like a hummingbird. Like this is like diabetes waiting to happen. Like, yeah, there's a lot of shame around like I carry around this identity and it's not
mhm.
necessarily good for me. Yeah.
Yeah. The dieting industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they've done a great job of convincing a lot of people that we can't trust our own urges. But humans have been feeding themselves and staying alive literally since the beginning of humankind, without courses, without diet plans, without doctors, without counting macros. And so we know from an energetic perspective, every single human needs different nutrients at different times. And we all, like on a daily basis, it's going to change. And
Mhm.
so the dieting world has kind of convinced us that there's this perfect daily meal plan that if we can stick to it and follow it forever, over and over and over and over and over again, that we'll achieve perfect health. And in reality, our bodies are always fluctuating.
Yeah.
Everything in your body is fluctuating. Your hydration levels are a range. Your sodium levels are a range. It's never, your temperature is a range. Your body is hardly ever exactly at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Like every single second of the day, it fluctuates and responds. And so your body is going to send you cravings for different things. Sometimes I am so picky and I have allowed myself I've allowed myself to just say that. I used to say, "Oh, like I'm gluten free, but I can like as long as it's gluten free, I'm fine." No, I'm picky and not just picky like in there's certain foods I don't eat. I'm seasonal. Like eggs in me have this love-hate relationship where I can eat them consistently and I want like egg salad sandwich and I want like fried eggs on I want them everywhere. And then there's other days where even just the thought of it like makes me queasy. And so and I'm the same with everything. I just recently got out of a like no pasta phase and like I couldn't touch pasta. It was the texture, it was like everything about it. I'm like, pasta is the most disgusting thing in the entire world. There's been phases of my life where like I'm like, I want the entire thing of pasta to myself right now and I'm not sharing. And so your body is going to tell you like it's going to need different things in different days. And so when the mind comes in and starts trying to figure out every ultimate solution, it's trying to figure out like the what is the ultimate diet plan and what is every nutrient that I'm ever going to need ever and how can I do that perfectly? If you're trying to solve this universal giant unsolvable problem, every single time the question of what are you hungry for right now comes up, you're also not present in the moment. And so that's another sign of stuckness. You're responding to something that doesn't exist. There isn't a perfect diet plan that you're going to be able to follow absolutely every single day of your life. Because one of those days you're going to be on a vacation and you're going to go on like a super long hike or something and you're going to feel starving afterwards and you're going to need to eat more. And then there might be a day where you're just kind of mad and you just need to like rest and you're not really feeling well and you need to have some extra sleep and some extra hydration, but you're just not hungry. And there's going to be days where you're at a fancy restaurant, you're celebrating something, and you are going to eat more than you need in that moment because it's just so good. And then
Mhm.
the next morning, you might feel a little bit off, but you'll give your body what you need in that moment when that happens. And that doesn't mean that you did something wrong by eating that extra bite of cheesecake. You enjoyed yourself. And now your body is saying, I want some water. I want some green juice. I want some of this next. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, there isn't an ultimate answer. And so, like,
I was gonna be
shame
like that
is,
shame bit with food was like,
yeah,
"Mwah, chef's kiss." It needs to be
thank you.
like everywhere.
Yeah, they've done a great job of convincing us that we can't trust ourselves, but you can, and your body is way smarter than you think it is? I think about childbirth. Like if your body, like you as a person who has had a child, your body can literally build an entire second human just like on the back burner while you're still existing and living. Like if you, if we can trust it to do that, we can trust it to say, I'm hungry, and we can trust it to say, yeah, the chocolate's a good idea right now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I never even thought about that. It is true. It is happening in the background, right? It's like a
Yeah.
Windows update, right? You're still using
It's
your
on
computer.
autopilot.
I mean, yeah, there's some more naps involved, but yeah,
Right.
it's not like you're completely helpless while it's going
Mm-mm.
on. Oh my gosh,
Like
that's
life goes on. Your body still does everything else.
hmm
And then on top of that, without like checking in and being like, hey, I need you to do this like that much, it just builds an entire human. And then, yeah,
that's
if we can
wild.
trust it to do that, and also like breastfeeding, mothers' bodies will literally respond and create different chemicals in their breast milk based off of their children's needs.
I
If your
That's why
body
I
can do
nursed for
that,
that long.
yeah, if your body
Yeah,
can do
it's
that,
bespoke.
you can
It
trust.
interacts with the saliva.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is like
Yeah.
completely not what we were supposed to be talking about. We have gone into tangent land again. Sorry,
Yes.
folks. Wait, was this the demo? Was this like you like
Yeah, this
mind
kind of
ninjaing?
was the demo. Well, we were talking about shame, and so we talked about it specifically with food, and that was a great example. So, I mean, I was
Holy,
definitely
okay.
using rapid resolution therapy there.
I was gonna say, like, for anyone who was like, are they gonna get into that thing? It was the thing. Like,
Mhm.
is your mind like broken yet? Like, I'm like, oh my god, she just walked me through this thing now, and I'm like, yeah, I'm so, oh my gosh, you are a magician, truly.
Thank you.
That was incredible. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't,
So it's
I
called
feel different.
conversational hypnosis.
Oh, see, now I know why
Yeah.
you needed a person. It would be kind of like wacky if you,
Like you've done messy, so I can like do
but
it
this
if
is
I have
better.
something to respond to. But yeah,
No,
you
no,
said, well,
this is,
here's a specific example. I said, yes.
no, no, no,
People can visualize that. Perfect.
this is way better. Oh my God. I am certain Danny is probably dying to talk to you. So without further ado, yeah, Danny's like, please just get off the stage. Okay, Danny, tag team out.
Yay.
We have arrived.
Yes, we're here.
This is so cool, Eden. That whole profile party, I really just want to follow up with everyone. I'm 2-4, and that fourth line's unconscious. So it's like, talk to me too, talk to me too. And it's not going to happen. I
That was
got
a
too
lot
many
of
things.
people.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just gave up. I watched myself give up on that notion and be a little bit sad for a moment. Brings me to this beautiful thing, watching the things like shame. Isn't this what human design gives us? It gives us the capacity to detach, watch, and the seeing it sort of makes it go away. I
Mhm.
like to say seeing it kills it, it's
Yeah.
and so you can detach, and then you start to look at the thing as if it's not fully you, even though it's you. You say, oh, I feel this, but I'm also looking at it. And that's when people start to get that first clue. I always thought that there is something different. There is, it's as if you get to see, oh my God, I am a personality consciousness watching something else that apparently is conscious and apparently is my life partner at
Hmm.
the same time. So this whole thing's amazing. Is there anything particular that was in your chart that you would have wanted to know, or just things that like those fanciful things that's either fun to talk about or not before I just sort of, because we got to give the audience the rundown as well.
Yeah.
Instead of just diving into if it's just me and you on a phone call, we would just start in
Hmm.
someplace abstract, but um, logically abstract,
Yeah.
I would say.
With my undefined G center, I love just hearing different interpretations of like what people see when like how do you see me? Who do you see me as? What stands out to you in the chart? I think that's always a
And no
fun
totally open
question.
centers.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like this. No totally open centers and tons of 34 going on. So, um, uh, the methods of magic, and I added to that I wrote right-minded methods of. So what we're looking at here is the chart of the energy type is a manifesting generator. I'm a manifesting generator. I got some of the same definition, and we're busy. we're busy. We can't always be really reached really well. The generator is designed to simply wait and respond. I always put it as it's like the generator responds and follows. And at the end of the dance, no one dances more steps. No one has more fun. No one listened to more or less music. They both finish at the same time, start at the same time. So what's the real difference to just say, hey, like the dog or the Buddha on the side of the river, I wait. I wait. And so this is a hard thing. Can you speak a little bit to what it was like learning to wait to respond? It's hard for manifesting generators. I found it later in life than you. How old are you right now? I'm almost
27.
okay. I'm approaching. I'll be turning 59 in a month, a little over a month, and so I started later in life. So I'm going to assume that made it harder on me, with all that manifestor conditioning. But do you remember your first times trying to stop and reorient yourself into a responsive nature?
Yeah, I was in college when I was first really experimenting with human design, and I had it in my head of just this conditioned belief of if you want something done, you have to do it yourself. And
Mhm.
so I had this very, like, I was trying to become more decisive. I remember getting a book called like How to Be Decisive or something like that. And so I thought if I was able to just make snap decisions quicker, I would move forward faster. And so I was like really forcing things. I was just
None of it felt
pushing.
good, did it?
Yeah, it didn't
It
feel
only
good.
felt good in little moments when your mind caught onto the dream of what could be, and then you'd
Yeah,
roll up your sleeves and your ego would tell you, yes, you can. And then a few minutes later, you'd be like, I don't know if I like this,
yeah, yeah.
right.
So,
So,
but yeah,
uh,
actively waiting. Specifically, I really wanted to be a tutor in the anatomy lab in college. And so I remember thinking, oh, well, if I want the position, I need to email the professor and let him know. And like, I know that I meet the qualifications. But instead, I said, I'm not going to, I'm going to wait. And that was a very like active practice of I waited and I waited and I had all of my friends because I was teaching it to everyone. I was already tutoring everyone at my table and I was already in that role, but I really wanted to be a tutor in like future semesters. And so I waited and waited and waited. And everyone said, like, oh, you should apply for that. Like, you should ask if he's thinking about you for this position. I said, yeah, I'm waiting. I'm waiting. He'll come to me. I know he will. And he pulled me aside after one of the days and said, hey, like, would you be interested in this? Because you would be a great candidate for this position. And I said, yes, I would love it. So
that's so
instead of
funny.
initiating, it was like 2 or 3 days that I had to sit and wait.
It was, in my college, I went to Berkeley in Boston studying music and film scoring, and my tutor job as a tutor, music tutor in the learning lab, we called it. It was the same. It was a similar dumb luck thing. I didn't have to wait. I was just sort of in the right place at the right time, and people started talking, and the next thing I know, in response, I just said all the right things because they were there already.
Yeah.
Having had a previous degree helped, and so I already knew that was a little badge in my corner. So I just leaned in and bam, got the job. That I didn't know I needed a job. I bumped into a thing, and the next thing I know, I have a job. And I
Perfect.
used to just call this dumb luck, like straight up dumb luck. And I love the term dumb luck because it's sort of cute sounding, but it's not quite dumb luck. It's
Mhm.
not. It was an alignment to a strategy and authority I didn't know I had. 'Cause this was a long time ago in the 90s. Hadn't been introduced yet. So yeah, that's amazing. I love that. So when we get into this energy type itself, and the strategy that goes along with it, I always like to describe to people the strategy of responding is literally like you have an analogy. And so I'm going to give my analogy. It's a guy's analogy. Picture it like a screw, and the instructions say screw the screw into the thing until it's snug, and then back it off 1/2 turn. Anyone can follow that instruction, guy or girl, it doesn't matter, obviously. Let's say it's a simple thing. Back it off 1/2 turn. You're a generator. You've been out front manifesting, screwed in real tight, you know. Back it off 1/2 turn. You've got to step back and allow the life that you're about to respond to happen, or else you're going to keep missing your truth. You're going to keep trying to initiate, and that manifestor conditioning will stay, and then our open centers will torture us. So,
Mhm.
how about you? The strategy. You have an
Yeah.
analogy?
I found that waiting is a shortcut. And so I just a fun thing that I tell people is sometimes we wait because we're so excited that we have to like we got there early and we just have to wait for the event to get there. We have to wait for everyone else to catch up. So we're waiting. I also talk about it like generators and manifesting generators, when they're in it, they really like to be in it and they don't like to be interrupted. And so it's almost like waiting until, especially as a manifesting generator, it's really waiting until that battery is all the way full so that you can use it all that you want. So it's almost like a slingshot or a bow and arrow. So it's like waiting, 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 waiting. But the longer you wait, it's like the more momentum, the more speed you're gaining. And so you'll actually get there faster and you gain
Indeed.
clarity along the way. And yeah, that's how I
Indeed.
typically
So
talk
the
about it.
signature that comes along with all of this, um, I've found that the aura and the signature, they really go hand in hand. So the generator's aura, for anyone who doesn't know, every human body has this aura that extends out, up to 4 and 5 feet in all directions, or at least 3 arms length anyway, sometimes more. And the aura does things. It repels resistance. It acts as a buffer so someone can sample. It penetrates the other so that it can come to know and help guide and direct. And then for us, it's just open and enveloping. I like to refer to generators as dumb generators. We don't know. We're open if the stuff comes to us. I don't. How am I supposed to know? I'm not a fortune teller, you know, would be what I would always say. And I run a business, a mortgage business, and people would say, "What's your business plan?" I'm going to wait to respond, and they would yell at me, "That's no business plan." I would hear all these things, and I'd be like, "Well, let's see. 20 some odd, almost 7 years later, 20 something years later, there she blows. I'm probably going to move on
Mhm.
from this, but that's only because it's time. But
Yeah.
yep. So this signature that comes along with this aura, open, enveloping, people come into it, things come into it. I always tell a generator, if you start waiting to respond, literally watching yourself wait and take that initial dog on a chain, reaction that we have so often, and just wait for a few moments. Generators don't have to wait long. We never have to
Mhm.
wait long. There's going to be a sound somewhere. A thought's going to come through. We respond to our own thoughts. That's a perfect place to respond to because it's not our fault if a thought came in. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's something new, and we get to respond to it. Um, we may find that it's still not for us, but that's for us to find out, is the
Mhm.
thing. And it goes so much with the signature of satisfaction and the not self theme of frustration. I found that satisfaction is this glorious place. I find it, we get to call satisfaction a place of happiness. Because when we're actually satisfied, we're happy, like the 4-year-old.
Mhm.
So I've always told people, you really want to get in touch with what the truth is, get back to your 4-year-old self because it's never wrong, ever. I mean, as an archetype, it's never wrong, is what I've always said. If the 4-year-old doesn't like it, that's true. If the 4-year-old can't stop, that's true. If the 4-year-old wants to pee its pants, that's true. It's that I'm just saying that's how it is. And so satisfaction becomes this wicked happy place. Satisfaction sounds like, oh no, I'm satisfied. That was pretty good. No, it's so much more exalted than that. What do you read into satisfaction when you see it as a signature?
I have found that satisfaction isn't necessarily instant gratification. It doesn't necessarily come from things being easy. It can
Mm-mm.
come from overcoming a hard challenge. And it's probably because gate 34 is the way that my sacral energy expresses. But yeah, I think that there's so much more satisfaction in like looking back at my certification program and seeing I created over 400 training programs in that. Was it tiring at times? Yes. But looking back and seeing, like, wow, I did a lot. I did something I'm very proud of. I created something very intentionally, very detail oriented and beautiful. Like, I really am proud of all of the little details. And yeah, it's something like that where it's almost like it has this glow, this magic
It's got
and
a glow to it.
frustration. Yeah,
Yeah,
frustration to me feels like you're trying to build a sandcastle with no water. And so
Right.
you're like filling up a bucket of sand and you're dumping it over, and then you're like, why is it not staying up?
Right.
And you're
Right.
trying to just like shape it. It's like you're pouring energy in, because that's what generators do. So we pour life force energy into things, and disset or frustration says, I'm pouring energy in and it's not changing. Nothing's working. It's not growing the way that it should grow. And then satisfaction says, I'm putting energy in and it's giving me so much back at the same time. It's turning out better than I could have expected.
Can't even
And
stop.
so,
You can't even
yeah,
stop.
yeah,
Right. Right. That's the kid. The kid is, why would the kid stop? I know when the kid stops, when his face is facing down in the carpet and drool is coming out of his mouth because he's asleep, you
yeah.
know? That's that good generator is what I always like to say it, good generator. I find that this frustration part, especially in a manifesting generator, because the 3420 is the archetype of the manifesting generator, and it comes with its share of anger and like
Mhm.
sudden outbursts, even of like almost rage. It's like this energy that's willing to launch the TV out of the second floor window. That's it. You're gone. Boom. And still regret it. It's like, I need that dang TV. I'm so pissed at myself for doing that, or whatever the thing is. Um, so I've destroyed my share of things in life inside of that frustration, inside of that place. And I remember being in my own head saying, I don't know what's driving this, but I couldn't
Mm.
feel the release of that energy until I smashed the thing, wrecked the thing, whatever it was, crashed through the thing, ran away because I'm a 2-4. So I found it goes to anger, and it can even turn into like rage, but it just doesn't stay. Now, it might be different with you a little bit because of the emotional wave has to come to clarity. So I imagine at times that rage could actually stick around for a few hours or a day with that ego
Yeah.
power. Mine couldn't stick around for very long. It just couldn't. Even 10 minutes later, the same person I was so mad at might come to the door. So I'd see them and I just wouldn't want to be. It's just, I already spent that energy already, and I would let it go. Is it different with this ego, for you
It
with this?
comes in waves for me, where things like I'll be initially really angry. And I think being an athlete growing up really, really helped, because I was always so physically active, and that was always a great outlet. Like if I was really mad, we always started with running and conditioning. So
Yeah,
I was working out, and that was helpful. And if you're
me
angry,
too.
vault is great. You're running full speed ahead of a stationary object and hitting it as hard as you can. So it was a great way to physically move a lot of that energy. And even now, like when things start to tick me off and I start to get angry, working out is typically one of the first things I'll try, to just give my space time, to give my body time to move that energy, because until I've regulated those emotions, I'm not going to find clarity. And so doing the I shouldn't be feeling angry, or judging myself for the feeling,
Doesn't really.
makes it just keeps it in the emotional vortex, and it just comes back in waves and waves and waves. So it can be 3 months later and I'm like, I'm still mad at that person and I don't want to talk to them. It's like, okay, maybe instead of torturing yourself with this perpetual, like, because I'm not feeling good if I'm constantly mad. I'm torturing myself in that moment. I'm in pain if I'm constantly mad. And so I'm saying, okay, is this actually worth it? Or is that teeny tiny, slightly uncomfortable conversation that I think I need to have going to actually lead to a lot more peace? So yeah, it boils. I've always called it like fury, and I tend to self-isolate very quickly. Like that gate 40.2 is like my go-to strategy when
Oh,
emotions are
yeah,
high. I
I
isolate
see that.
very intensely. Also as an observer environment style. So yeah, I when those emotions are high, I tend to just whoosh, hermit shell, ghost people. You won't talk to me while I go through my flurry and I journal about how mad I am at you and say all of the profane things that I need to say.
Right,
And then I
right.
burn that piece of paper and come back to you with an emotionally regulated response.
A well-regulated, knowing, awake, manifesting generator with a 3420 especially should have moments that sound a little bit like Tourette's. Sorry. And I would say for actually any generator, frankly. But yeah, it's and it's happening so fast, and then it just helps sort of get gone and go away. I'm so excited. I'm following Moni's format here. I've never quite done it this way, but it actually feels good. Freaking projector's always guiding me. God, gosh darn it. So this
Is it
whole we
frustrating
dealt
when
with
they're
this.
right?
Say it again.
Isn't it frustrating when they're right?
I know about being it's so funny. So this whole profile thing, we deal with the not self. Let's just finish up with the not self. This not self is ubiquitous in our world. Come into the human design experiment and you'll start to see for yourself that this sense of frustration that for me it was my 10 speed. I would get on my 10 speed, next thing I know I'd be 30 miles from home, just pounding away until finally my legs would give out like rubber bands,
Hmm.
and then I couldn't think about what I was mad about anymore. And it was so understand in a generator, this frustration, it needs to be worked through. When you see it in your children, find something that they like to do that makes them have to like move that energy hard. Tressa, I love Tressa. She's one of my dearest friends. Been a student for a long time, and now she's just a little master herself. I begged her. I was like, get some harnesses and attach a sleigh to this child and to these children, and it's time to pull you around for a little while.
Yeah.
Not that they want to do that, but God forbid they want to do that. Now you're all set, because that energy is going to turn into fatigue, and then they're going to be tired and it's all gone. So I can't overstress. Working physical energy through your body at times of frustration is literally so key, along with the rest of this experiment. Um, this profile. So you're not in the 6 line phase yet, but you've read so much about it. You must be forecasting what it is. You're forecasting the roof. You're
I
forecasting this
am.
development. What's that like? Because most people don't get a chance to really be where you are.
It's interesting. So my Saturn return is scheduled to like officially start
Scheduled. I love that.
June of next year.
Yep.
But from what I've heard, usually a couple years before you start to inch your way up in that
Hmm.
direction.
Yep.
And as soon as I turned 25, it was like this. I could like feel it. I don't know. It just became this like presence of like the Saturn return as a thing. And I felt the like resilience start to dwindle a little bit. When I first started my business, there was very much this I am going to do more than absolutely everybody, and I'm going to work harder than everybody, and I'm going to help everyone. And it was just that third line resilience. And
Hmm.
I've come to terms with, just time and time again. I'm like, actually, I don't want to do everything. And actually, I know I could run two different masterminds and a group thing here and a group thing there, but I don't want to do it all. So I've been noticing that like trial and error is starting to get tiring. And so it used to be, oh, okay, this didn't work. Awesome. I'll respond to it and I'll move into the next thing. So there is almost this like stillness that's been happening in my energy. And then I'm really interested to see just like how that Saturn return goes because it's in gate 25.3 consciously, which is in my undefined G center. And it's a third line on top of that. And then it starts like the day that Saturn enters Aries. So it's the longest possible Saturn return that you can possibly have.
Wow. Why'd you
So,
say 25's in your unconscious? Isn't it on your
or
conscious side? Did I
conscious,
miss? Okay.
undefined
Yep.
G center.
Undefined. Okay.
Sorry.
Yep. All good.
Yeah, unconsciously it's 17.
Wonderful.
Um,
Oh,
yeah.
and it's in the it's beyond the law. It's with Saturn, who will cause problems if when you disobey her. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
it's more than the judge in a way. It is the judge in a way. Um, so that's amazing. So this is
Mhm.
so. But 25 is this profile, the 6-2 profile, the hermit. And I love it. The nihilist, that's Ra's line, 42. You're not going to get anywhere near me until I am called, and then I'll be all over you like white on rice, essentially. Um, have you been confused by this calling, or did the generator in you just constantly recognize it was happy and didn't really think about it too much? Or did you see the serendipity and the innocence of this
Mhm.
calling that would just keep showing up? And if you answer the call and you're a generator as a response, you're going the right way. You're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Um,
With that undefined G center, there can sometimes be this theme of, is this my dream? Like, is this my purpose? Or did I just watch a whole bunch of other people do something similar and I think this is the best direction? So sometimes there can be like a little bit of just questioning of, who am I? Is this actually meant for me? Am I headed in the right direction? But it lasts a few minutes and then I'm able to move
Right.
through it. Um, the way human design found me was a very serendipitous and just like a very spiritual experience where it showed up over and over again through just different people sharing it. And I pulled up my chart and I was like, no, that's too confusing. But then there was this glitch in a psychology lecture on a PowerPoint, and the words human design were next to each other. And so it was like a very, it felt like the universe was like, no, you have to go in this direction. And then everything started changing so quickly as soon as I did start saying yes to it. And I really started surrendering to the lessons. So there has always been this like, no, I'm really meant for this. This is definitely a big part of my story. And just seeing the ripple effect of me starting to talk about it online in 2019 to seeing where this community has grown to now has been just so reaffirming as well. So yeah,
Ra
sometimes that insecurity comes in.
Ra Uruhu in the beginning made it a presumption that this, by the time humanity is as awake as it's going to get, that human design may have reached up to 1% of the population or two. He had some low numbers. His forecasting was a little bit sad sounding. If you had to forecast, what would you think is going to take place over the next 5 or 6 years as it relates to,
Mm,
because this stuff is starting to take off. It's hard to say, nah. I mean, there's a lot of readers now.
yeah,
Yep.
I've certified several.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Um, yeah, with that gate 17, that farsightedness, I
Three
do,
separate times, right?
yeah, three times, both of my north nodes and that unconscious Jupiter. So that's a lot of time is spent in looking at the patterns and thinking about how it's going to play out in the future. So Gen Z has Pluto in Sagittarius. And so what Generation Z is really here to transform is our relationship to work, and our relationship to Sagittarius is also about like play. And it starts with gate 34, like you can see in my Pluto placements, which is about personal power. And then that's
Mhm.
also, we also have 2027 coming up where we're going to have some emotional mutations. And we're already seeing a rise in this. So, a big part of the changes that are going to happen is that the emotional center is going to go from being a motor center to just an awareness center. And that is a really, really big deal collectively because we are far too emotionally reactive for the world that we live in. Emotional reactivity was amazing when it kept us alive when we were running away from predators. Now we have emergency life or death saving levels of emotion in response to angry emails, comments that are left on our
Right,
Instagram feeds. It's
right.
it's out of
It's
balance. There's
proportional,
that.
man. It's
There's
totally
the
out of balance.
34. Yeah, my
Yeah.
Tourette's moment of the stutter. Yeah. So what's going to happen with the emotional center is it's shifting to being just emotional like intelligence without that emotional
But it
reactivity.
still needs its clarity process.
It
It
does.
will, it will, and it still will have its motorized function for the next 30 years, as we will
Yeah.
be the predominant people on the planet for the next
Yeah.
50, 60 years, really.
Hmm.
Until it's offset by the new children that are coming in. And
Yeah.
I don't know that it was totally, I don't know that Ra was able to actually pinpoint for sure that there aren't people that will still have certain emotional attachments and
Mm,
connections that don't have anything to do with gate 49 and 19, splitting off from each other. So, and the whole changing of this basically stream of awareness into that autic circuit. So I am curious to find out what happens and to really interview people later, 10 years from now,
mm.
about this process and what's been going. I can't wait to see
Yeah.
what happens, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
have
we're really
noticed,
ready for it. And we're
I
seeing
hope so.
the
Yeah.
rise of Right now, we're seeing a lot of people present with autism and ADHD and neurodivergency. And so we're already having this rise of individuality come up where people are curious about themselves. And something, a major thing that the millennial generation has done is destigmatize mental health. Now it's common for me to scroll through TikTok and see a video that says, "Today, my therapist told me," and goes into this really personal, very vulnerable, life changing piece of advice. Versus when I was growing up, we didn't talk about mental health. We didn't talk about feeling sad. We didn't talk about things like that. So that has already drastically changed the conversation to where we're more compassionate, we're more trauma informed, we're more aware of how other people feel. And we're also going to have to realize that we will not agree with everybody. That fear of rejection is very primal. It's really written into our DNA. And
Mhm.
as humans, we have never been more connected. And so a couple hundred years ago, it made sense to have a fear of abandonment and rejection because you only had the people in your town, the people in your city, the family that you knew.
Abandonment could mean death,
Yeah, abandonment
potentially.
meant death if you didn't have that
Yeah,
tribe. But today, we are in contact with so many people through the internet. We are globally connected. And with a planet being globally connected, there is absolutely no way that there is even probably a single topic that every single one of the humans on the planet agrees with. And so that fear of rejection is inevitable. It's not something that we can be feeling like we're going to be like our life is threatened if we're being rejected. And like that's where the nervous system dysregulation is happening. You get a mean comment, your primal body says, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die because this person doesn't agree with me." And then you're reacting out of like an emotional heightenedness. So yeah, we're seeing the intelligence, we're seeing the interest in the nervous system regulation, energetics, astrology, human design. And so I see it coming up for a reason at this time. And like the next generations are really interested in this. And so as we continue to see more people gain interest in it, I'd love to see it integrated in more. What I dislike, and just coming from a medical background, is that a diagnosis tends to be like the end game
right.
in the psychological world.
Yep.
And so if you're just going for, okay, you've been diagnosed with PTSD, you've been diagnosed with complex trauma, you've been diagnosed with anxiety, depression, then it just becomes this excuse and this identity. And it just perpetuates this story. When we look at human design, those are symptoms. Those are symptoms, and it's just like a small energetic shift. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's something deeply wrong with who you are. And of course,
One step
I
further.
believe in intuitive choice. So if medication is the correct path for you, that is absolutely the correct path for you. I have a lot of ADHD and autism symptoms, and human
Get
design has
loaded with
allowed
them.
me
Look at you, you
to,
little freak. That's what you
yeah,
are. Me too. We love it. I love it. Yeah, more. Sprinkle it
yeah.
harder. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like my human design has just been able to explain all of it. Like I have all of those arrows pointing to the right. My brain is very passive and I'm very right-brained. I'm a
Me
triple
too. Yeah.
split, so I jump all over the place. As a manifesting generator, I can't even think in a straight line sometimes, let alone
Squirrel.
function or like plan my day in a straight line.
Yeah, I
And
got one word for it. I call it
work.
squirrel.
Yeah,
Squirrel. Yeah.
I
Choo,
call it
choo.
tinkering. Yeah, my job, like I just tinker instead of writing to-do lists. I've literally started writing, I just keep track of like what I tinkered with that day. And it's
Right.
been so powerful to see like, okay, this inspired me to jump over here, which inspired me to jump over here. And it's like you can track your attention and
Right. You know what? I
see
ought
the
to give
thread
that
of
a
where you
try.
went. Yeah, it's fun.
Even in your pre-Saturn stage where you're approaching your Saturn return, the left angle still is left angle. It still is even in the right angle phase. I don't know we can fully call that a right angle phase. We can call it a 3-2 phase.
Yeah.
We can point out all the right angle qualities, which is our qualities of youth anyways, have to. So this whole definition thing, and as we get into this definition, we'll look at centers and undefined centers real quick. So when we look at your definition, it makes a triple split. Have you noticed in your triple splitness that you have to be out in the world sometimes, even when the hermit in you says, I don't want to go anywhere. What happens in
Yeah.
those moments? Because that's an interesting combination. If you're a
I
3-5, people split, no sweat. Of course, you're going to go out and bounce on things. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
Yeah, it's almost like I get restless in my own house,
Hmm.
where, especially working from home. But usually it'll start in the morning where it's like I can't find a comfortable place to journal. And if I just can't figure out like where do I want to sit to journal, how do I want to, like, if I want to be up here, if I want to be downstairs, if I can't find a comfortable place, I'll typically go to a coffee shop. And so at that point, it's really just like, okay, I know I need to leave the house. I need to go to a coffee shop. And then I'll just allow myself to just intuitively drive wherever. So I get to like the end of my neighborhood. I'm like, okay, am I going left or am I going right? And I'll kind of feel it through. Like, I feel like I need to just like get somewhere right now, or I need to drive for a little while, and then I can move into like where I need to go next. But yeah, I
Have
sometimes
you
I'm just
noticed?
need to go to the store. I need to go to a bookstore or something.
Have you noticed that even driving in traffic does the deed?
Yeah,
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 it explains road rage in California, where the traffic is 4 and 5 and 6 lanes wide, bumper to bumper. That's a lot of aura. Of
it
course, there's going to
is.
be various forms of, road incident when people don't know because they're
Yeah.
unaware that they're being conditioned
Oh
a
yeah.
lot.
But I
Um,
love a good drive. Yeah, I used to, especially in nursing school, sometimes I'm like, I just need to drive. I'll just get on the highway and drive like half an hour and then turn around, drive back.
and it
Going
wouldn't have
nowhere,
it wouldn't
just
have occurred
being
to you at the
everywhere.
time that every time you pass someone, every time you came to a light, you're washing through the auras, which is I
Mhm.
always call it tell third, triple a split definition, triple split definitions, look at it like a shower. You're taking an auric shower. Or look at it like the chiropractor, the good ones. When you're done and you hear clickety clickety crack and it feels so good, look at it like that. You're going out to get your adjustments, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so I always love that. But definition. So 1762, 2034. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the channels that are fully defined. We have 4 channels, 3740, channel of community, and then this channel of judgment, the design of insatiable design of finding things to make better, always filling up a well. So 3420 is where awareness must become deed. It's a design of a manifesting generator, and it's designed to be quick, but it still must wait. And if every generator who had this definition, if they learned to wait and recognize the anger is not really theirs, it came from you not being aligned to your strategy and authority, they would start to recognize waiting's just not that big of a deal. As soon as we're in response, I've found manifesting generators, especially, turn into manifestors, powerful ones. But
Mhm.
but it's got a time limit. There's a timer on it. I don't know what the timer is. You'll know. You'll know when it's up. Really, that when the timer's up, wait and collect a new response. Just like Underdog had an underdog pill. I'm sort of dating myself with that reference, but um, right? What do you think of that? It's like of course you have to wait, but as soon as you're in response, what really is the difference between you and the manifester in that moment as it relates to doing?
Mm.
You're going to look forward. It's like I now I need to go to the store because I need nails. Okay, that's still within the original response. If I can't wait to build my dog's doghouse, and you love it, and you're building, now you're going to go to the store 100 times, manifesting, because now you're doing. You really are doing the doing, but it has a time limit. As that
Mhm.
doghouse project comes to a completion, so does the manifestation. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I have really played with manifesting generators as being almost a spectrum of that like manifestor to generator energy, because you can have a manifesting generator who, let's say, has a connection between their sacral center to their throat center through the G center, so like an
Hmm.
indirect connection. And their response is going to show up a little bit differently than somebody who, let's say, has the 60 to 3 channel and then one of the emotional manifesting channels.
Mm.
And so I've really played with it as a spectrum, but with the 3420 being a manifesting generator channel, my only conscious channel, and then also my only channel in my sacral center. It's been really interesting to try
Showing
and tease
activation in your
apart.
sacral.
Yeah.
That's wow. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 times, but the only one.
Yep. I see that.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, people say manifesting generators or generators first, but my generator energy has always had this manifestor cycle because it is a manifesting generator channel. So I almost feel like mani gens go through longer phases, longer seasons than manifestors. And it's almost like a mini generator cycle. So it's almost like for this season of my business, I'm podcasting a lot or I'm writing a lot of books. And so it's almost like you're showing up in that season as a generator and generating and doing the things. But then that excitement starts to dwindle and it starts to wane. And so that's where almost this manifestor energy comes in of like, okay, I have to finish this, or I mean, that's generator. You finish the you finish the pattern, you finish the cycle, and then you go into a rest phase. And a lot of manifesting generators feel like it's almost a plateau or it's burnout because the interest in, I feel like for manifestors, it's very clear, like this is the cycle and now we're done. And for manifesting generators, because that sacral is in the fix, it really is a fizzle. It's
It
this
is.
like
It's you gotta fizzle out.
slowly, yeah,
And the
it's a
fizzling out feels
fizzle.
slow. There's
It
melancholy in
does.
the fizzle, and we have to teach our people and ourselves when did we get the idea? I know when we got it, because I had the idea that sadness is bad. Think of what we've done with this word sadness instead of
Mhm.
a creative state where glory and intelligence comes from. I always
Yeah.
tell people, oh, you're sad? Great. You're about to get smarter. Look at that. This is great. Just hang on. Hold on a minute. 4 p.m., you're going to be smart again. Um, isn't it true though? If you're sad,
It
it
is.
means you're on your way to new intelligence. So
Mhm.
sadness drives it. And when the fizzle happens, I've always noticed that the sadness feels so blue. I don't even know what's going to be next. I can't. The doghouse is done. I got band-aids on my fingers. The day's almost over. I'm not ready to go to sleep. Everything sort of, you know. But then again,
Yeah.
I don't have a defined ego to get that reward of that. So it's like I don't even have that. It's like, and I just have to wait through it. My generator body is saying, no, my child, you will sustain at the next thing. I'm putting you right back to, I'm just saying, we generators are a slave to our energy. And if we disobey her, we are nothing but frustrated and we get sick. We get sick. And that's no good. And so Ra had said once, and I totally believe it, that illness essentially propagates out of the not self.
Mhm.
Now, cellularly, it then takes on all these things we can name and see and all this, but it still is given all this negative energy through the not self to disorganize and decombobulate in the first place. And so I just find that amazing. So I see in channels here, I see this channel of it's not openness. What is 1762? It's a recognition, right?
Community. Or
Huh?
1762 is,
Why am I drawing a blank here?
it's
It's
not
it's
judge acceptance.
acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as it I've always found that name to be odd because
Mhm.
literally it's the 17 that it does the accepting of its place and the logical process. And the acceptance becomes this recognition because it's an intelligence, right? Coming out of 17 that to lead, one must follow. And to follow, one must lead. And it is this fellowship that takes place up there because to lead and to follow requires communion so you can follow the other and lead the others. And sometimes you're switching back and forth. But then this channel can become it's not self would be I'm supposed to lead. I know I have all the right things. My opinion matters more than anything. Um, and that can come out as pompous at times. But the truth of the matter is, you go to 17 and 62 and you ask them for their opinion on something, because this really is opinions that come out. It's logical. It's looking into the future. It's dying to support Gate 7 and the Sphinx when the Sphinx comes around. And what's it doing? It's collecting all the details and drafting possible logical things, in your case, to solve mysteries and assuage confusion, right? It's like, oh, the mystery, oh, the thing, oh, it's coming back, oh, it's too loud, oh, I don't want all the sound. I'm keynoting the gates in your head center. Oh, it's confusing. Oh, I feel like it's oppression, but I don't got that gate. Oh, it's just too much. Oh, turn it off. Oh, I have the opinion. Oh, the details showed up. Oh, I'm on the move. Right? Is that sound about like your process sometimes that will
Yeah.
happen? Okay.
Yeah. It's very, I do see the 64 and the 62 work together. Um, it's interesting because they almost, I know they're not pairing partners, but they feel very different sometimes. With 61, it's very much like this, just I just know this thing, and then eventually the details and the opinions to back that will show up in my world.
Yep.
And with 64, it feels like somebody dumped a bucket of Legos or puzzle pieces out like in my brain, and I'm just like, whoa, all of the bits and pieces of information are just like coming together, and it just feels like an abundance of inspiration. And so with that, I'm
By
like, okay, I
abundance,
just need to
you mean
sit.
too much. It feels like too
Yeah,
much
it
sometimes.
feels
Yeah.
like too much sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially
So
with 62 being so detailed, it's like taking in all of the inspiration and then funneling it down. So, yeah, it just takes time.
yeah, you have that twice as well. Look at that.
Mhm.
I have gate 12, line 4. I love this prophet. It's driven. So, and then we've already talked in great deal about 3420. And so talk about the sharing process of 1762. So quietly it wants to share, vocally it becomes a gunslinger and it must share. And then quietly it starts to recognize, do I keep sharing? Because the energy will disorganize if the timing isn't right. So that would have been a process for you to learn.
Yeah, especially with it being my South nodes, it's definitely shown up in a lot of like lessons for me. It it feels like that's my nerdy channel is in my brain. It's like that's my nerdy. I like the details. I want to put all the human design information in spreadsheets and write it down here and move it over here. So I love to organize information and put it in different ways. And my opinions, if they're not well thought through, I came across as being very argumentative as a child, even though I was just trying to understand the logic. And if I didn't understand it logically, it was hard for me to accept. And I would push boundaries in that way where I'm like, I don't accept that.
Well, you're designed to
That's not a
challenge.
logical answer. Yeah.
You would challenge those logic. So these two channels go together. I guess we're saving the emotional channel for last. So 58 and 18. 58 is an insatiable joy. It's
Mhm.
called the gate of joy, and its insatiability is it wants to get on the move, coming out of the root center. So that's adrenalized energy, wanting to share with someone else the event that's about to get looked into. It wants deeply to find something to identify with. It's the rocket fuel for the entire logical process. And it's the only rocket fuel for the logical process. So that's why logic is always
Mhm.
starved for a little bit of extra energy. Um, does make me wonder what's going to happen when the emotional process slows down. That's funny.
Yeah.
So, but 18 is very challenging. And again, you got this twice, right? Is it three
Yeah.
times or twice?
Twice.
Have you counted up your activations and you got 18?
18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Mhm.
yeah, that starts as soon as you get down to 18 and 17, you start to be on the lower side of the average. I've always found I've seen one with as low as 14 activations. These people are very dense. They're compact amongst themselves somehow or other. I'm not sure what that is. I would love to just, check it out more. But this 18 that wants to challenge, you got it twice. They're in your nodes. Your nodes cause a direction. The storyline says I go from opinions to basically understanding where it's going to fit, meaning what to challenge and what's worth challenging. You know what I mean? And what purpose is this going to fulfill? And does this make me feel driven? Does this let me feel unstuck? I'm keynoting the gates in your root, because ultimately the things you care to correct are always trying to serve the individual. The collective serves the individual. The tribe serves
Mhm.
the individual because it's the individual expression that the consciousness program appears to be after. I mean, I've yet to find an exception to that. If you find one, let me know. So they're serving this and that ambition that wants to serve still. So sometimes for purpose, once you're not stuck and you've accepted the limitation, you're not busting through that limitation. And here's this passion to come out and basically challenge an old way. Oh my God, what's that been like for you? Because it's an emotional process at the same time. So you've driven some
Uh,
people crazy.
yeah.
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 Do you ever
Oh,
get yourself
yeah.
kicked out of places?
Actually,
Oh,
no.
not so much that. Okay.
That gate 18 definitely showed up as like a fear of breaking rules. And then, yeah, it can show up as I know exactly how to follow rules and when to challenge. Like it
Same
was
here. Yeah.
more of like a held back, I don't know if I can do this, like building up the courage to was more of my journey than getting in trouble. I had brothers that got in a lot of trouble, so I watched it, was like, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna correct it. I'm
Right.
gonna correct my
Well,
behavior
when
and
you're part hermit, the correction is within.
mhm,
And the challenge is within just as much as without. But you challenge your parents, you challenge your brothers, you challenge your teachers because you've got these logical opinions to back it up. The knower must know. The confusion must be assuaged. The stuckness has been overcome because suddenly gate 60 is designed to transcend. It just sucks that it takes so long sometimes. I have gate 60 as well. And it's like stuck. I'm
yeah.
stuck. And
Even
yet there's an insatiable force pouring out that must be shared, right? Collective,
mhm,
logical, and it's got an opinion. It's got one.
yeah.
It's emotionally charged, and its awareness must become deed in the now. So sometimes that turns you into, have you ever been just plain up fired from a job? I mean, you're young enough to maybe
Mhm.
that hasn't happened yet.
I've had very few jobs.
That's right. I was gonna say you've hardly had any. Yeah. I've only had
Uh,
like one or two jobs in my whole life now that I think of it. Um, that I
like
could be fired
4.
for. Yeah.
Yeah. I quit all of them. It
Same
was
here.
like the sacral energy of like, I can't force myself to do this anymore.
I quit every one of
Um,
them myself.
yeah.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yep.
that challenge of authority really came up when I started sharing human design and I started gaining traction with my offers and my business, where I'm still not certified in human design. I've just self-taught everything and just
We are the
obsessively
certification. We
learned.
got to get that
Yeah,
word certification out of our library, except as it
yeah,
relates to helping others, because BS. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. But especially in the beginning when I was this, 21-year-old or 22-year-old, I don't know when originally started sharing it, young 20-year-old sharing human design and giving this information. And there was a lot of judgment and pushback, and even like some hate videos were put out there of just like people completely misinterpreting my story and making up a whole bunch of, she studied with this person, she got lucky because of this, and she knows these people. I'm like, I don't know where you read that, but that's, if you asked me about it, I could have told you that none of that is true. So I felt like a little bit challenged for, am I doing the system harm by translating it into the manifestation world? That was a big conversation that
Mm,
in human design, manifestation, the concept of law of attraction is not grounded in human design. Like it's just not discussed. Manifestation as a mechanic is motorized energy moving to the throat, it's initiation. And so the human design community was like, some people in that world were very mad at me and challenged me and posted terrible things about me on the internet and said like, she's a red flag because she talks about manifestation and human design. But that was my individualized expression, like gate 34 as the embodiment of manifesting generator power. It's like, that's of course the journey that I was going through, and that's the language that I brought to
the
my
only time
business.
I know exactly what you mean. I would get challenged all the time. My starting cycle was a long time ago, 2000,
Mhm.
in the 2000s. So I was just looked at like a freak, like some woo woo. You know what I mean? Like whatever. It was hard for me to get traction in that way. I remember it was like a ghost town compared to now. You know what I mean? It really.
Yeah.
We were the early settlers, and there were settlers before even me. That's for dang sure. I'm guessing that this challenge, as it suits the purpose, starts to feel better and better and just pours out because I realize it's a fear of authority. It
Mhm.
is a fear of authority. Oh my God, oh my God. But it's connected to 58. Even afraid, you're still dude, the energy is challenging, even when you don't say anything. Do people try to straighten up and fly right around you sometimes? Just curiosity. The aura comes into contact and suddenly they 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 brush off the crumbs on the table and they straighten things out or something. Do they try to straighten up and fly right in your presence
Yes.
sometimes? Okay.
I also notice it with that defined ego as well. There's this in a sixth line, there's a lot of projections of perfection, of,
Mhm.
oh, your house must be perfectly clean, everything must be perfectly organized. And so there can be like a projection or this like assumption that I'm judging them. where
There
really
is.
like you're just judging yourself based off of my energy. But like I will hear it a lot of, oh, you're probably judging me for my car being so messy, or like, please don't judge me for this. And that came up a lot, even with I'm like the eldest daughter of, I have 7 siblings. I have one older brother and then 6 younger siblings. But I moved out at 18 and moved several states away and kind of lost touch with several of my siblings. So when my grandfather got sick, I went back, and it had been a couple of years since I had talked to some of my siblings, and they had this story that I was super judgmental and I didn't want anything to do with them. And there was a lot of like, I have to tidy up, I have to do this. There's also some like seeking validation. So I will hear stories of like, oh, I before you got here, I did this and I did this, and it took me 10 hours to get this done, and I did this too, and I did this. And so there can be this like, look at all I did, look at all I did. Can you like, is it good enough? Is it good enough?
Mm,
And I see that more in like the defined ego of,
mm,
can you give me the approval? Can you tell me that I've done a good job? But as a gymnast, it was very
right.
very detrimental of like, there's just projections of perfection, and
What
yeah,
they
that
do
can
to
be
those young
challenging.
girls, well, those young people, because it's boys and girls, it's
Mhm.
both. What they do is incredible. Men and women too. That pressure I watch gymnasts go through, most professional athletes, really,
Mhm.
because there's no team sport in gymnastics. Essentially, you're on your own. I mean, unless you're Ringling Brothers and you're doing it with others, and certain right, certain aspects, but mostly. So these channels all work together. Getting to this last channel, this channel of community, it stands all by itself. This is so common because this channel is in
Mhm.
opposition. You have two of the three channels that sit in opposition to each other. That's a lot of
Yeah,
that's a lot of
it's the
guaranteed
cross of
definition.
duality.
Yep, it is
Yeah.
duality. And I love the description of this particular duality where it's sort of obvious because the 34 is transitioning out. Same with the 26. It just turns into wisdom and basically a type 34 becomes patient-ish in line 6.
Ish.
You know, ish, as much as one can do. Um, and then there's a hermit underneath that, and then there's the emotional tribal definition 4037 that wants to feed everyone, have community, needs its loyalty, has bargains, and you better keep them. You know what I mean? And there's stuff going on here, and has the ego will to say so when needed. I mean, you got
Mhm.
26 there too, so it's not like you can't broadcast. And it comes out with ego willpower causing people to want to compete with you and then want to get close to you and then want to compete with you and then want to get away from you. And then just depending on where that wave is without ever really coming to be aware of what is you. So you
Mhm.
run into your share of people, tell me if this is correct, in your life that would only brush up against you and did not know in any kind of way whom you were.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's funny, my husband and I have this running joke. I'm 5'2", so I happen to be a good height where for a lot of average height adults, I'm like invisible. But we have this joke that like I'm invisible in crowds where people will accidentally step in front of me or like accidentally bump into me all the
right.
time.
Mm,
And it's great. I love being in, like, I have a friend group where there's a girl who works at a coffee shop that I like to go to, and went out with her and some of her friends to a haunted house a couple of weeks ago. And like, nobody knew anything about me. I was just like one of the people in this group. We're just hanging out in line for a haunted house. And sometimes I'm like, none of you even know what human design is, but I'm kind of like a little mini celebrity in this little fun niche world over here, and it's really fun. So, but yeah, it's
that's
it's kind of fun, especially with an undefined G center, to like shapeshift and to be invisible and be like, yeah, I have this whole other secret life back there that you have no idea, but
so
I'm just gonna
you
be
have
here.
noticed in no uncertain terms, having this emotional definition, you've noticed it moves in a ratchet wave. It steps forward, it pulls back, it waits to see what support needs to be given. It never, almost never, won't actually support the thing that's needed, even when you're really mad at the person. It still sort of does at least the bare minimum because that's what tribalness demands. That's
Yeah.
survival. You get the community still comes first, but it doesn't stop the blow up and the ultimate possible breakup or whatever, or movement on. This duality moves on. It's almost like the cross of the plane in a way. It will move on, but it doesn't want to, is the thing. it almost, this regret you were talking about earlier, I can see this regret very much manifesting out of the 34, the machismo, which are still in technically, and there's even a little bully in there if I'm not, 34-1. It's all there. I got 34. I know what it's like. The 34 is a bully. It's always crashing its energy into things. So here you are contemplating the awareness of now, squirrel, knowing you need to slow down. And so this, I can see that's the duality. The duality is one side is just sort of, in a way, self-concerned and just outdoing the now thing with all its power. And the other thing is like, no, 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 there's this larger communal concern. There's food, there's loyalty, there's commitments, there's things we're doing. There's this ego will, we got to put our shoulder to the wheel thing. Loyalty is huge. Loyalty is huge. So this duality, one more, listen, integration is about self-empowerment. So one, just self-concerned, empowered in a way, because my now, not someone else's, it's yours. And the other, no, 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 group concern. But I can't tell if it's a group concern because it's the second line. And so let's wait till it's called out of me before I understand it. So what's that? Because you had to figure that out at some point in time. You had to figure out that you seem to go back and forth where people who didn't have that going on would either accuse you of things or exalt certain things. But
Yeah.
it's the accusations that sort of hurt when we're younger and don't know what to do with it all. And so accuse you of things, paint you in a certain corner, like you're part of your family that had you pigeonholed as a judgmental one. It's like, dude, it's not personal. It's not even my fault.
I'm
You
like, I'm
know,
the most accepting person you've ever met. What are you talking about?
right? Harmony is part
Yeah.
of your way, you know, sustained harmony is part of this way. So that's been a little odd at times, I imagine, just going back and forth between, no, 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 I'm gone. I'm like the wind, baby. I'm on the move. And no, 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 I planted roots. I'm here and I'm staying. Has
Yeah.
this has this been torture or weirdness or cool? What's it? It's been all of it.
It's the chaos of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's all of that duality because there's a need for aloneness, but there's also a need for community and like bouncing energy off of other people. But there's some hyper independence, and then there's, some like a selfishness, but also this like really being, wanting to give to other people and serve other people. And then the collective circuitry around like, okay, if I do this, is that going to cause more harm than good? So a lot of it has been this like almost second guessing and like riding that emotional wave of like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Is this just a me thing or is this like a collective thing? Because sometimes it's, oh, I'm feeling this thing, I call it out, and it is, yes, everyone is feeling this. This pattern is wrong. We need to change something. The collective system has to change, and it leads to a bigger change. And it starts with me being brave enough to say, hey, I don't think that this is the way that it should be. But other times, it's not. Other times it is a me thing where it's not that the whole system of, let's say, like nursing school is incorrect. It's me. It's not that they're overworking absolutely everybody. It's that I am overworking myself, being in a career that I'm not happy with, and also trying to build the career that I'm happy with on the back burner.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I'm in
I
that
think,
transition myself right now. Like literally as
yeah.
we speak, I'm going through that. It's amazing process. But I've
Is it
just come to
me?
find
Is
out
it
that,
everything?
yeah, well, I've just come to find out that manifesting generators, if they come to truly know this archetype of this 3420 is the design of survival, it's
Mhm.
hard to kill these people. Just go ahead and realize it doesn't matter really what you do, most, not totally, but a lot. It doesn't matter as long as you're awake to your nature. You're going to live well past 100. You can't stop. You just I don't even know. I can't tell I'm getting older. I mean, I can tell like my balance or whatever. Like I can't jump 5 feet and not expect to hurt my knees a little bit, when I
Mhm.
come landing on the ground. But if you send me flying and I have to land on the ground, I'm going to land fine. I'm going to shake it off,
Yeah.
with some ice and something or whatever. I can't tell that I'm mortal in that way. And that's what generators are. They're so existential. They're supposed to be just right now.
Mhm.
Have you heard much about this trying to make a fifth type out of the manifesting generator? I mean, I've seen tons
Yes.
about it. I've seen tons
Yeah.
about it. What did
Mhm.
you think of that? If you care to say.
Yeah. I've seen manifesting generators as a spectrum. And I mean, we can get really meta with this. Of course, this is the 1762. I'm like, okay, let's look at the details here.
Mhm.
Raw didn't actually include type in the original versions of human design. And so it was really just wait and go. It's like taking action or waiting. And that was really the nuance that was there, was waiting and taking action. We are all a combination of all of the types. Like with a triple split, I wait for invitations. With
Right.
3 projected channels, like I wait for invitations, and as a manifesting generator with the 3420, when I respond, it's also this initiation at the same time, and they're kind of blended together. There are other people whose designs are, let's say, like I think I talked earlier, if they have like a root and sacral energy, it's going to feel like a generator that responds with that sacral response and this emotional wave that's riding and sending them on this like emotional manifestor cycle as well. So they will be balancing the two different energetics. So I feel like it's really a hybrid, and I know we can get amazing information with strategy and authority, but I really love to just focus on like what are the conversations in the actual channels, because that is where the energy
That's
is
where it
moving,
happens.
and that's so much more specific
It
than
is. It
like
is.
yeah,
I made it
human
simple
design
in
is
my life.
the
I
science
just
of differentiation.
Yeah, it is different, and you're going to differentiate wildly like a snowflake as soon as we dig into
Mhm.
the chart, regardless. I've just found that a generator's a generator, generator. If you have a sacral, you better surrender to that little Buddha that says you must
Mhm.
wait. So you are that screw that must back itself off half a turn and
Yeah.
wait. And so I've never chosen to actually allow that distinction to hit home with me, other than it's a huge distinction, as it relates to describing it. But you got that sacral, you're a generator, one of the 4 types, and the one of the
Yeah.
types just happens to have two sort of little sections to it, is the way I put it. Um, and then these open centers. So we already talked about the open head center pulling in. Oh, now I know. Now I'm confused. Now I'm not confused. It's all intermittent. So when you first found this out as a right-minded being with that strategic view of yours, and it looks like fear would turn into need with all of that, and it looks like judgment is part of all of that as it relates to the
Mhm.
the tone and the color. Um, so I find this to be, if you're right-minded and you're pulling in this open head center, the whole world can seem against you at times as it relates to too much stuff and it's too confusing. And suddenly, who's the greatest quitters in the world? Generators, emotional or not, ego or not. You know what I mean? It's because our frustration grows because we've got into it wrong.
Mhm.
And I'd say that's only true because we're also the greatest population on the world, on the planet, as it relates to
Yeah.
numbers. So that alone, but open head center, thinking about things that don't matter and having it turn into something real. Actually, you covered that in your talk, didn't you? When you kept saying, no, no, that's yesterday. So this is the
Mhm.
wisdom of the open center talking, now that I think of it, when you were talking about all the stuff that's not right now. So as a wisdom center now, knowing that you tend to think about things that won't matter if you're not paying attention, what's that struggle been like? What and did it
Mm.
was it a hurt to the ego to say, "What do you mean I'm thinking about things that don't matter?" I mean, that can when I first heard things about myself, I was like, "Nuh-uh." You know what I mean? Day one, I remember I
Yeah.
was like, "Whatever, whatever. This is BS."
Yeah, it felt freeing actually, of like, oh, thank God I don't have to figure this all out. It felt
Right.
like the pressure was actually released when I found out that I wasn't designed to come up with all of the answers, and that they would appear for me when I needed them. And I just had like some examples of like a friend of mine told me about this new diet that she was going to start in this new workout plan, and in the back of my brain I was like, oh, but like not based on your nutrition, and I know the workouts, and like I ended up thinking about her body type, and I was in my mind just hours later still thinking about like what would the perfect workout and nutrition plan be for her, and like should I write it up. I was like, wait, that doesn't even matter to me. Doesn't even matter to me. That's not relevant. Where would I like to redirect my attention? So, with an undefined head center, I know that I can think about anything. I can ask a million questions. I can search for inspiration everywhere, and ideas love me. My job is to filter through all of that abundance of inspiration that I am open to using my design. And so the ideas that are meant for me will be the ones that really light me up. And I trust that the inspiration comes to me. And now I say, I trust my interest. Like I trust my mind to be interested in things that are intended to me. I trust that
Right.
if it's interesting, if it's capturing my attention, it's capturing my attention for a reason. There's something there for me. And
Right.
so I get to, anytime I'm maybe scrolling, instead of saying, oh, you shouldn't be scrolling, you're doing something bad, whatever, you're taking in too much inspiration. I say, okay, check in with my body. Like, is there inspiration here for me? I'm interested in staying here for a few more minutes. There must be something here for me. I'll give myself a few more minutes. And then when the urge hits, I know that I'll be done and I will move on to the next thing.
It's
So,
about
yeah.
not feeling bad about any of it is the thing. I totally get all that. This sacral generative power that we have really does come pouring out. I've always told generators, and tell me if this resonates with you, you can make it even simpler. Does it feel good or not? Right? Do you find that you have the energy for it or not? And can you see in your life that there's a spectrum of energy where sometimes you're full on, can't be stopped. Other times you're three quarters. You don't necessarily, you got some you don't feel like it, but you're doing it anyways. But it's not lighting you up. You got that half speed down to 1/4 speed power where it's like you really don't want to be there, but there's some obligation and you got to finish to schlep the stupid thing across the street. Now you're mad at it even, you don't want to be there. And all the way down to zero energy. And if people can start to tune into, hey, I'm doing this thing, but I'm at my job, but every time I wake up in the morning, I don't have a lot of energy to get there. I have to force it. Yeah, not for you. You don't even need to understand strategy and authority in that moment just to understand. I mean, you'll understand it, but just to understand that as the energy goes down, the 4-year-old is telling you, not true. It's not true for me. You're a liar if you keep doing it, by the way. And if you convince yourself you're any good at it, you're an extra liar. That this is somehow for you and you're going to do this forever and be happy, satisfied. So the generator I've found needs to come to terms with that outside of our responsive nature, we're liars. If you're not a responder, you're a liar, and a little one, not a big liar. I don't like the way that sounds, but I'm talking about internally, little
Mhm.
nuggets of it, and that the level of energy that is there that you wanna or don't wanna, whatever the thing is your indicator that sacral gave you permission or that mind has been overriding sacral without having to go through, was that, because when generators first come into it, was that a response or was that my mind? Right? That's the first thing we get to. Well, you can corroborate that now if you just go back to, am I happy doing it? Is there a lot of energy? Do I got lots of energy to do this? Well, but I have to get it done. Right. Not true. You don't like it. Not for you. Start to move away. You know what I mean? Even though you have to do it. I get you have to do it. You got to pay your mortgage next month. I get that part, but you got to start moving away now because it's not true. Not
Mhm.
true. So have you found it that simple now that you're 7 or so years later into this experiment?
Yeah, I keep coming back to like simplifying it. And I always just come back to like my favorite phrase is reckless self-trust. And so
What
I
did it
just
say it again?
reckless self-trust. So
Okay.
I trust myself recklessly. And I came up
Me
with that
too.
when I quit my
Yeah.
nursing job. Like I decided to leave my nursing job and then left it the next day and I'd been a registered nurse for 6 weeks. So I basically threw away a career, but that was 4 years ago, and I'm exactly where I need to be. But it
That's too
felt
funny. You
reckless.
threw away career. No, I found myself.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Um, I forgot what I was saying, but oh yeah, yeah. The frustration, not frustration. I did forget what I
Yeah.
was gonna say. So, anyways, I
Sorry
must
about
have
that.
said
I
it.
took you off. I got too excited. Yeah, because I've heard that so many times in my life. Now, this open G center, um, you got these two activations off of it, right? So one of
Mhm.
them, are these both unconscious? The colors aren't totally
One is
25 is conscious
conscious, one is unconscious.
and 6 is, it's not, 46 isn't double. Yeah, so that's just strictly unconscious. So the 46 wouldn't have stood out as much. Oh, you have a love of being in your body. Well, intermittently, maybe it's unconscious. So the fact that it's there, see, this is the trip. The unconscious things sitting on open centers are vexing. Vexing is a sort of older word, but that they can be troublesome because it's there, but you can't tell. because it shows up out of a tunnel, and you're always trying to make sense of something like that. How do you make sense of that? You can't really tell. So you found a way to love your body naturally, is what I heard, because you stayed active. This is the
Yeah.
love of the body, is the active. In the activity, where are we? We're planted in the nat. When you're running down the street, you might have some stuff going on about things, but you're also planted right now because you got to be, because you're in that movement. So that's all 46 asks for. It's like, come with me right now. Come be now, and ditch expectations, because this is part of that abstract, emotional awareness circuitry. And so it can get caught up with expectation and then lose track of. So you have waffled between, even though you don't have a gate 35, you still got a 36. So all this crisis would show up. I can't tell. I'm uncertain. I'm inexperienced. I don't know. Well, and then that could easily take you out of your body, where you couldn't quite tell what to do. But then 25 comes along, and it just is a serene type of innocence, except that its melancholy is I'm insignificant. You only got 4 individual gates. I counted at 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mhm.
Well, 34 and 20, but it's because they're a channel. I get they count as melancholy, so never mind.
Yeah.
So 6 gates of melancholy totally. What am I saying? But but the 25 would have stood out, because when it showed up, it would show up rather profoundly. Who am I? I'm insignificant. Why am I even this? And it goes so counter to the fact that you must share your opinions. You are significant. It's like, oops. As a G center, and this whole looking for love and direction, I never really liked that keynote very much, but it's true. And the love is the love of ourself, and the love of the beauty that is supposed to be. And the direction is towards the communion and the fulfillment of the spirit, not just the spirit of the self, but the 55, well, 55 spirit generally. That's the spirit of all of humanity. And
Mhm.
25 is very much the innocence of all of humanity, but it is the spirit of the self. So it's right across the way from gate 10. So 25 and 10 end up working together to where they love itself or it doesn't. Have you recognized a certain innocence that allows you to basically walk through issues unscathed? When you quit that job after 6 weeks, people may have told you a bunch of stuff, but you walked scot-free, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Oh, I did
all the
have to
baggage.
pay.
Oh
I
yeah,
did have
what?
to pay like $4,000 to get out of my contract that I signed.
Oh, oh, well, that's easy. That was still not a hard decision. You walked scot-free of lifestyle consequences is what I'm looking at,
Mhm.
not a money purchase. I get it. That hurt. No, I get it. That's not the best thing at all. But um, I mean, they were paying you anyway, so you probably just gave them back their own money.
Yeah.
That's funny now that I think of it. Here you go. Um, What have you made of that whole looking for love and direction? Because in a triple split, the natural tendency and the not self-conditioned part of our life is to really blame the other and look into others and sort of have this finger pointing way that you could have easily taken this judgmentation of 58, 7, 18 and not realized it's not personal. You could have taken that personal over and over again with an open G center that's starting to get annoyed at people not showing you the way, yet they kept showing up over and over again to give you directions. Open G center people get directions all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was that like? Was that too
Um,
much question, or can you
no, yeah, I can answer it. It led to a feeling of disconnection and it kind of fed into like the gate 58 shadow of disappointment and
Mhm,
like dissatisfaction, where I would because with the undefined G center, you see the potential of who you think people could be. So there was a lot of pedestaling, especially with 18, with like a fear and respect of authority.
mhm,
So I put a lot of like coaches and experts like on a pedestal, and then of course with that like insignificance, like I am nothing and like your opinion means everything. And then it led to almost like when my, I don't know, heroes, I guess, didn't meet my expectations, I was like, oh, and it kind of fizzled. And so then I felt like, oh, they're lying. And then it was blaming of like, they aren't who they said that were. They're a bad person. And it could be very judgmental and accusatory.
Yeah, and
Actually,
suddenly you're taking that into yourself
yeah.
as if
Mhm.
it's really you, and it's not just this impersonal thing that needs to be shared one way or another, or not. By the way, 58 18 becomes a pro at finding the timing. Just because you notice it doesn't mean you need to say it, because that energy is powerful coming out of you. So you learn that lesson somewhere along the way. Is that right?
Yes, yes, there's a right time for
Was it was it
everything.
a process of tongue biting when you were first learning the skill? Like what, like when we first learn to walk and we fall down a lot, you gotta
Even
bite your tongue.
today, yeah, with the something I actively work on is not talking over people because sometimes with that 34, it just responds so quickly, and that 62, it like wants to just explain all of the details. And growing up with seven siblings, you kind of had to talk over somebody if you wanted to be heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's shown up there. It was like I'm trying to like, it's I know the answer, but it's not the right time. And also learning to tap into like the capacity of other people. Because just because I have the energy to say it doesn't mean they have the capacity to receive it. And so, yes, I could talk about human design for 4 hours straight on a masterclass and not even need a sip of water. But if I'm talking about emotional processing and like the really heavy, deep, beautiful themes that we're talking about, if somebody is brand new and most of what they're receiving in that conversation is new, they're not going, like their eyes are going to be glazed over at about a quarter of the way through. So I've
That
learned
was
a
my
lot
first.
about timing and
Oh,
pacing.
my first
Mhm.
10 years in this whole thing were glazed over eyes. Just try to imagine being me. Luckily, I was called, you know what I mean? And but it was like they just glaze over. And I
Mhm.
remember two aligns with hope. Even though my motivation is desire, your motivation is
Fear.
intelligence. Well, fear drives
Yeah.
intelligence. And so the gathering of intelligence was just fearful when you don't have the intelligence yet. So
Mhm.
that's you, foundational stuff. And mine was desire, so I couldn't stop trying to get to the next person. But hope, second lines resonate to hope because
Mhm.
hope is the second color. Have you noticed that in your life? It's like you could
Yeah.
just suddenly then knock down, never mind your third line theme, never mind the sacral sustains. Sooner or later, through the melancholy comes back the hope. And the hope is a persistent theme. And with sixth line, that goes along with optimism. So it's hope and
It does.
optimism. It's a little double whammy of pick me up.
Yeah. I
Yep.
will somehow still always see a silver lining, even when everything just looks gray. I'm like, no, it's silver. Everything is silver. Look.
Absolutely. Me too. I'm down with that very much
Yeah.
so. Yep. And so,
Worst case scenario, at least this is temporary.
right, something will give. That's a big famous saying. Don't worry, something's going to happen. Something will give. Something will happen. Hope is a yang energy. It's not a yin
Mhm.
energy. It is yang. It's a yang line. Second lines are yang. Second four, 2, 4, and 6, and it's a yang energy. Hope is an active principle. It's one active, moving principle. And I mean, I love how they described it in the Matrix. It's like this quintessential thing, hope. And that guy was all mad about it. And I'm like, I know why you're mad about it because it's ruining your day. You know what I mean? Um, so when I add in all of this stuff and I look at this open G center, and you've already looked at it plenty of times, the feeling of being lost would in you suddenly start to get replaced with, I'm always able to tell where I am. Is that true?
Mhm. Yeah, I see it as
Especially when
I
I'm not in
always
the right
know who I
place.
need to be. Yeah, like I'm always in the right place. I'm always exactly where I need to be. And also this like, especially
Or
with
you're,
the 34
or you're
20,
moving
like
out,
how,
or you're moving
yeah,
away quickly.
yeah.
So these things now show up without you feeling guilt about that movement or self-conscious or, that kind of thing. Is that true?
Yeah. Like,
So,
no,
yeah.
if it's not right for me, it's not right for me. And if you don't understand that, I don't owe you an explanation.
Right, right. Although if you ask, I'll probably respond and tell you.
Yeah, I will explain it in excruciating detail.
Excruciating. I'm gonna
Please
hurt you.
ask me for my opinion. I'd
Please,
love to
I'm gonna
explain.
hurt you. I'm gonna hurt you so bad with all the details. I totally get what I'm gonna hurt you. You ready? I have that whole channel 6447. So it's doing a different process, but it
Mhm.
never shuts off ever. And so when I think about things that don't matter, it turned out that it didn't not matter. Apparently I needed to go through that energetic process of pressure because it was showing me something I needed to whatever. Um, but when I put these open centers together, have you done this for yourself? When you keynote for people, do you stack up the open centers and keynote it all together?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I find that to be, I always come back and sort of just try and do that. And so in the not self craziness of this busyness, that's a dualistic creature all by itself could be called bipolar and or schizophrenic in a way. Um, before I get to that, we, you were too many siblings, so they might not have been able to pay attention, but in the world you grew up in, it would have been common for you to start receiving diagnoses with
Mhm.
a chart like this. Did you?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, anxiety, and severe depression when I was like 16, 17, right after like career-ending shoulder injury from gymnastics. And my dad was diagnosed with bipolar, and like there's some mental health themes that have followed through the family. So yeah, there was always this like maybe I'm bipolar as well, especially with like
Yeah.
everything in
So,
my chart.
like you were saying in your demonstration, those just become excuses to identify in a way that's who you're
Mhm.
not, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, I can't wait till we get about the business of scrubbing away these diagnoses and replacing them with actual conscious aware things that make more sense for people. I
Mhm.
can't wait. They're going to fight us tooth and nail. There's a
Yeah,
lot of,
some people will.
well, the industry itself will do its thing. But when I stack these up, I find that if you were a first reading, you would totally identify with this. Now you're just going to remember it, but it's busy being confused and wondering if there's too much noise about the knowing you're doing. Are you going to turn out to be significant? Are you going to find yourself in the right place? You start thinking about things that don't matter regarding the love and affection that you think and direction that you think you're chasing, but always seems elusive to you. And none of that would be you. Um, that's how those two open centers stack up,
Mm.
ultimately, and they become a giant brainstorm. It's all in the mind, right? Haven't God, when you read for new people, then you can see the journey that they're on. It feels like shepherding is what it feels like. It feels like a
Yeah.
great honor, and I can't wait to watch people wake up. I'm still jazzed to this day. As soon as they're starting to get it, suddenly I'm going 2 hours and long on every call. You know what I mean? You said 20 and 30 minutes or 15 and 20, and I'm like, wow, it's a skill I must learn.
Oh, that was just in the beginning when I saw that there was like hundreds that I had to do.
Oh, right. Yeah. So,
Once I got into sessions and I really started really understanding the material, they were like
well,
2, 3 hours.
ultimately, what I love about this, actually, one more comment about the 3420. Have you noticed that it is so fast, the 3420? You had mentioned it already about busting in, timing, and all that stuff. Um, there's two things. It's on the surface. That power and that
Mhm.
wisdom in the second lines, they float on the surface. Their natural talents aren't quite deep yet. They have to go through a process to deepen that up. They're just talented on the surface. And that can sound almost like an insult. So, A, just because your awareness and everything said it in the now, that was correct. But I've noticed there's a healthy aspect where I'll say, but that doesn't mean I'm right.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm correct. It doesn't mean it's correct for sure. And I hate saying it because at the time I'm so sure I'm right. I don't want to give them that information, but I have to say it. It's like a disclaimer. It doesn't mean I'm right.
Mhm.
And the second thing is 3420, the timing of finishing the other sentence because they're going too slow. Well, I was thinking about, yeah, I know. You want to go out to dinner, right? It's like, well, I was hoping to finish my sentence, Dan. Oh, sorry. Right? Do you do that? Or have you found I still do it to this day? I did it with you a
Still.
couple times, and you've done it here a time or two, I think.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that that's like one of the things that I still consciously work on every once in a while is I notice my brain will just automatically fill in the end of your sentence and I have a response to it. And especially if someone's like searching for a
Oh
word
my
or
God, I
anything
fill in
like
their
that.
words
I'm like,
from all the time. You and I are the
like,
word
here it is,
providers.
here it
Oh,
is,
here,
here
here, here.
it is.
Here you go. Hurry. Hurry. Come on, honey. You can go
Yeah.
faster.
Like, did you
Right?
mean this? Did you mean this? Did you mean this? I'm just like an encyclopedia with my synonyms.
Well, this brings us in perfect alignment to the last thing, these variables. I'm just going to stick with the right-mindedness mostly, for at least just because this is the emblem that we all need to get to. The right-minded being like you, me, Moana, we're growing in numbers. I don't know if you've noticed, but read back over your charts. And if you put them from 7 years ago through to now, you'll notice that a slight tick up of ratio. It's not 50-50 anymore. It's turning 53-47, or I'm not sure what the number is. I should go look myself more, but we're becoming more right-minded because that's where humanity is headed ultimately. Now, in this rightness is the endless ocean of everything. That is a magical place. That's why I wrote down right-minded methods of magic. You said methods of magic, and I added the right-minded. Have you just noticed that the place wants to be so strategic and figure it out? And as soon as it's a perfect arrow for a generator. It's a perfect arrow for a generator. Yet in our world as it is right now, if that strategic arrow is not present anywhere, we really won't get enough done. Egos aside, you know what I mean? We just something.
Mhm.
There'll be an endless morass of possibility, essentially, you know, without the rest of it, the strategicness having honed us into a spot. And I found it easy to describe to people who are right-minded, and I found it a little more difficult to explain to people who have a left arrow there. But your variables are almost all right, except for that view, which sees the want. I see the want, and it's got that beautiful, first tone underneath it. So the first tone demands foundations of want, and above it, I love this variable combination, you know what I'm saying? And it fits into your design. So when I look at this right arrow and a sharp view that looks at want, so you see the want, you see it, and that want transfers. It transfers to all the other colors, just like the fourth line, fourth color in the personality would of need. These things transfer. And at the same time, it doesn't matter what they transfer because the rightness in you always has the answer when oriented in response. Did you have to study the tests? You found out you didn't. I heard you describe it earlier. When you started to get less nervous about tests, you realized, oh no, if I just pour through the material, I did fine. Is that
Mhm.
true?
Yeah, I started studying a lot less, and I almost started writing my notes as if a friend missed class and I was teaching them. So really embodying that sixth line, almost like teacher archetype, also helped me to remember it better. But yeah.
At this point in time, I trust my rightness so implicitly that I found it recovers portions of books, sayings, sentences, technical aspects, your chart. I've been looking at what Moni sent me, but I kept realizing I didn't really have to look at it um, because it was already there. It went in. It kept going in, and I realized I could almost recite it until I started looking at it. So, what would you say? I know what I would say. The biggest fallback and thing that you have to recognize about about rightness generally is don't treat it like it can do something for you.
Mm,
Don't treat it like it can even do anything. Don't treat it. You know what I mean? Stay away from it in a way. Just know it's there all the time and revel in her glory. It's like a freaking oracle.
yeah,
It's
it
like,
really
and
is.
it's an oracle, and it never runs out of the stuff that's in there. As soon as the response is there, as soon as
Mhm.
that responsive generator is manifesting in its responsive state, you know, is that your experience of this rightness that you have?
Yeah, I love being asked questions where I don't consciously know the answer because a lot of times I find an answer that I didn't even realize I knew. And so it's like through questions and through teaching, I actually learned more from myself and it's so cool. I love it. Like I recently taught a program on the variables and somebody asked a certain question and I connected dots between like second colors and second tones and just made a connection like this theme of open and closed. It shows up in markets as well. And it was just this thing. And I was like, oh yeah, whoa, that's so cool. As I'm like saying this and teaching this, I'm like, that's so fun. There's this connection there. But I also like prepare to get to that point instead of like I'm not just going to show up to a call with no slides and say, like, I don't know, whatever is going to come through comes through. Sometimes in the right context, there's like a Q&A call or something like that. But
Sure.
yeah,
We
it
jot
is.
stuff down when it gets super specific, but then the looking at it doesn't always even happen.
Mm,
Just the fact of jotting it down put it there, and it took away our fear, right? Fear's intelligence
yeah.
making. I say let your fears roll through. Let them roll through. They're gonna you don't have a choice anyways.
Mhm.
Let them move through, just like in meditation where thoughts move through and you let them move through and pass out and stay in that trance-like state. Same thing with fear. You stay in your awake state. You can be totally awake. And what is awake? Beta or theta? What's the brainwave that's alpha or something is
I
totally
thought it was
awake?
alpha.
Okay, something you stay in that alpha state, whatever it is, totally awake, you know what I mean? And just let that stuff happen. It just keeps happening. And as soon as you're not sure, the guy who lost his password to his crypto wallet, if he was right-minded and we could teach him his design, you know what I mean? Someone had like $1 billion crypto wallet, but they can't find their password. So that's it. They can't have it. That money will never get
Mhm.
any. It's a story. I don't know if it's true. I imagine it is. And if that person were right-minded, it would come. We could potentially get in there and fish it out, except when he tries.
Mhm.
It's so. Have you noticed the trying is what disorganizes it? The lack of trying is what enriches it. That's not strategic, dude. That's the opposite of strategery.
That one is quite the conundrum, and just it's, yeah, counterintuitive sometimes because it's crazy because it's like you're thinking of something like, I know this word, it's on the tip of my tongue, I know this, I know this, I know this, and you can't think of it to save your life. And that's why, like, I wasn't testing well in
Right.
college. Is
Right.
I was strategically trying to search, like, I know this, I know this, I know this, where is the answer? I know the answer. And that, like, searching, it's like the walls close. It's like, nope, nothing here. The ink just disappears. But if somebody else asks me, or if I move past it, I really got good at moving past questions if the answer didn't appear like first few minutes or
Yeah.
first few seconds, I would move on. And a lot of times, like 5 or 6 questions later, all of a sudden I'd be like, ding, like, oh, that's right, that's the answer. I could
It
go back
shows up.
and
The
put it in.
rightness acts
Mhm.
very much like a pulse. And as humanity turns more right, our open receptivity towards the communion we're supposed to have with others will finally ignite the 55th spirit of it all, and the spirit of ourself will go. And then humanity's main keynote will be able to finally take place. You know how there's these overarching keynotes that are like the primary keynote for even a body graph or this
Mhm.
circuitry or this or that. There's an overarching keynote just for the human experience, and I've always found it amazing. I'm not sure why it never really got taught, but it's keeps standing there. It goes from 55, and it goes up through 2, 1, 8, and basically you can end it there, and it lands at the contribution of our community with the other, our communion with the other. It's
Mhm.
the spirit of humanity that must drive a direction towards beauty, leading to greater communion as contributed through gate 8. And if you just keep that in mind, you see the movement of where humanity's trying to get to. And it's just this amazing place. And in our rightness, I can't help but to think Albert Einstein was right. You know, I don't know. I have to pull his chart. Maybe he wasn't.
Yeah.
Something about him just pulls the rightness, pulls the thing. Leftness knows to do something with it. And these two things
Mhm.
cooperate. And one isn't better than the other. It's just that they must cooperate until we finally done all the things we need to do so that when we turn all right, it won't matter. It'll be like Eden again, is what we're looking for, as long as we can, stop everyone from killing everyone else.
That part.
That part. Oops, that part. Yeah, that part. So just to wrap this all up, if you were brand new and I was keynoting your chart altogether, I would say here's a person loaded down with details. They know they have details. They have to learn the timing to share. It's hard to learn because they're so dang fast, but the sensitivity through the supportiveness of the emotional definition will guarantee they will learn it if they want to. And then the timing will show up and the emotional wave will give the clarity. And then they'll suddenly know exactly what prophetic articulations to make in the now. And guess what? It'll be loaded with details and it'll drive a direction towards something logical in the other with a great
Mhm.
deal of joy. And that's what you're supposed to be doing. out in the public.
Yeah.
What crisis?
Yeah. The duality of the situation.
The duality of it all.
There's the events all over the place where we got to meet I got to meet a lot of different analysts, speaking at the International Human Design Conference, and
Yeah.
it was like there was a bigger audience than I thought there would be. So
Wow.
there is a lot of interest. I think it's increasing for sure.
I'm still pissed that I had to grow up in human design in a ghost town. You know what I'm saying? It's like, come on, I want those years back. I don't get to have them, of course, but this whole thing was so.
It's a fun
I
one.
feel I feel pretty complete. How about you, Eden?
Good. Yeah, I'm feeling very complete. This was so good. It was a beautiful reflection. I've only actually received like a handful of human design chart readings, so it's always fun to like, oh yeah, I did get that right.
Yes, to receive and see what is it you had and
Yeah.
didn't have. That was
Yeah.
my learning went that way too. It was amazing. So
Thank you so
much humbled,
much.
much appreciated, Eden. I love this.
You can hang out with me on Instagram primarily at I am Eden Carpenter. My website is also my name, so it's super easy to find. And I'm doing a whole bunch of random little things right now. It's kind of a season of like back end projects and like end of year cleanup. But you can come hang out with me on Instagram and you can get your free human design chart. I know we talked about variables today. I have a variables chart report that you can get because not all of the human design charts actually share the gates, the lines and the tones. So you can get that chart and get some fun information about the variables, which are a really fascinating layer of human design. So that's been my current focus. And yeah, who knows what I'll be up to by the time this goes live.
Right? I mean, it is going to be next week, so it's not like
Yeah,
that far
that
from
is,
now.
but it's also like a year away, essentially.
Oh my gosh. So I will have all of these lovely links up in the chat so you could go check it out. And with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. And hopefully, you're just as blown away as I was when Eden introduced the method of magic to me and all the other things she shared. So, without further ado, good night.
Hi.